our season 2 finale recap. Family Matters season 2, episode 25 is called I Should Have Done Something. Original air date, not too far from when we're recording this. I mean, we're recording this on March 19th. So like a little over a month from when the episode aired in real time back in the day, April 26th, 1991, which actually kind of surprised me because I know the season 1 finale aired around that time, April time frame. Looking at how television seasons are usually constructed in the network form, like they usually run from like late September through like mid-May. So Family Matters certainly had a longer summer break going into a new season.
They really did. They had a longer summer break. And maybe it was because they were like, okay, we've got to figure out how to write Urkel into this show permanently. So let's scrap everything we had for season 2 originally.
Yeah, that's possible. So yeah, original air date April 26th, 1991. The late great David W. Duclan wrote this episode. Rich Correll, fittingly enough, is directing this season 2 finale and guest starring B. Richards as the widow Helen, Tiu Leek as that news reporter on site, Karen Costa, and Ron Tank as the anchorman in the news studio. Our Hulu summary: Carl Winslow experiences a guilt over a hostage who was shot a year ago while he was on duty as a police officer. And Hulu should have inserted a meanwhile, but they didn't. They're just kind of assuming this is all one big thing. So literally after that Carl story, Hulu just says Steve Urkel bribes Laura Winslow to go out on a date with him. So really no transition, just Carl Winslow experiencing PTSD and then Steve Urkel bribing Laura, as if we haven't seen that many times before.
And like, it's brand new. This is brand new bribery. Like, come on.
It's somewhat fresh bribery. It has a hint of springtime lilies to it.
That is the type of bribery I like. That smells good and makes you feel awesome.
Yeah, reminds me of fresh clothes, fresh smelling clothing, fresh from the dryer.
Ooh, if that's what bribery's like, I might look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I know you had thoughts about this season finale last week, and I'm really curious to hear them in detail as we get through this recap. Let's start with the cold open. I mean, we're in the living room, and the living room sets up our B story of Steve trying to get Laura to go out with him to a certain concert. What do you think about this one?
I like that Urkel came in rapping Can't Touch This. That made me laugh my butt off because he was on beat. Every word was correct. And I'm surprised he didn't break out into the dance.
The You Can't Touch This dance. MC Hammer had a specific dance, right? It was like a very parachutey hammer time, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly that.
Yeah, he was doing his Urkel dance version of the MC Hammer dance. And, speaking of You Can't Touch This, I'm just laughing because these boomer writers, like, all they know in terms of like relating to the hip young people of the time is let's reference MC Hammer several times. Let's reference Bobby Brown several times. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've already heard about MC Hammer in just the 2 seasons of Family Matters. So that's the first thing that came to my mind was just like, yeah, really? Okay, boomers. Like let's go with another artist.
That came to my mind too when Laura was like, I want to go to this Johnny Gill concert. And I'm like, Johnny Gill? Why was Laura listening to him?
Well, you know what? I applaud the boomer writers for coming up with another hip artist that is different from MC Hammer and Bobby Brown. And look, Johnny Gill, based on your reaction, I assume you know very well that he had some adult bedroom music. And I don't know. I mean, it could be tied to the fact that Johnny Gill, fittingly enough, he was Bobby Brown's replacement when Bobby Brown left New Edition. So maybe there's like that tie-in of like, Johnny was a part of this boy band that was relatively okay for teenage girls to listen to, and then he segued into, just like Bobby, more adult, sexy, risque stuff. Look, I mean, teenage girls, they have hormones, so I could imagine many a teenage girl liking Johnny Gill back in the day.
I can see that. I mean, this explains why we millennials are a messed up group of people, but I can see it. But when she was like Johnny Gill, I was like, what? I'm like, okay, I could get Bobby Brown. Even that's a little risky. Johnny Gill was like, take your clothes off and I want to see you dance. And it's like, wait, hang on. Why is Laura going to this?
Hey, you know what? She is slowly finding her sexuality. That's what we're finding out. But to kind of go back to the beginning of this cold open when Steve dances, with the Walkman and his headphones to the MC Hammer song. Did you remember when he was sitting down next to Laura. Laura's obviously like very annoyed with Steve and just wants to be by herself in the living room with her book. And Steve was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just listening to my polka rap." And when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, is there a polka rap version of MC Hammer that I didn't know?" Because the way Steve was like jamming and dancing along and singing along to MC Hammer, it just seemed like he was jamming to the original tune that we know.
Really think they made a mistake and didn't correct whatever line correction it needed to be, because it's clear as day that he's listening to Can't Touch This, not some polka version of the song.
Yeah. Seriously, Steve senses something is up with Laura. He senses that something is bothering her, something's on her mind, she's not in a good mood, and he puts his hand over her shoulder to let her know that she can talk to him. And I love, subtle moments like these where Laura just looks at Urkel's hand in disgust, like, "Boy, I know you are not putting your hand on my damn shoulder." And Steve just quickly pulls away without hesitation when he senses the look. He's like, "Oops," because there's a no touching rule. And he's probably violated it many times before, but sometimes he just knows, like, if Laura is especially irritated today, don't do it.
I'm gonna lose a hand. He knew it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And when Laura explains she's not in the mood for Steve's antics because she got up at 3 a.m. to stand in line for Johnny Gill concert tickets, we can't help but be reminded of a simpler time when there was no internet and no Ticketmaster queue. Like, you literally had to physically go to a line outside of a box office to get concert tickets. Is that something you would have done back in the day? Is like actually stand in line for many hours starting at 3 a.m. for concert tickets?
I'm not standing in line for Jesus to get in heaven. I'm not standing in line for concert tickets. I will never, ever wait in a line.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. And honestly, there are people to this day, even though there's the internet, there are people that will stand in line outside of will call, like maybe last minute the night of the concert, camping out. You've seen that news footage, Taylor Swift fans or whatever. They're just obsessed. They want to get those last minute tickets. I'm all about the computer. If I'm going to be obsessed enough with a concert performer, I would rather wait 40 on an online queue from the safety of my office rather than go out and probably the rain and make friends with a weird homeless stranger.
There's something about waiting in line, and I have one caveat. I did wait in one line one time in my life to get the first Xbox. That was the only time I waited in line. Horrible experience. I'll never do it again. You lying people are weird. Just so you know, I do judge all of you. But if you're one of the people waiting in line at a Beyonce concert, it's because you're not a real Beyonce fan. Nobody waits in line. You should have gotten the credit card to get the pre order, to get in the beehive, to wait to get your ticket. Why are you waiting outside? You're not a fan. Go away.
Oh my God. That's
Make it
insane.
messy for the rest of us.
That's interesting that you think that because I would think like, oh, if you're, taking time out of your precious day to wait in line, weather be damned, that would make you the ultimate fan. So I'm interested that you have a different perspective on that.
It's just performative bull, and y'all know it's performative because you could have got those tickets in advance. The ticket is not going to be cheaper at the door, and also, most likely, you're not going to get in if it's a Beyonce concert.
Hey, you have to think about it. A zillion people can get online at the same time when tickets go on pre-sale, and before you know it, like the chance that you thought you had, like within 2 minutes, like that chance is gone. So I'm thinking maybe those people standing in line outside are like, I tried it online, and now my only choice is to stand with this stranger who smells like fish named Herb.
No decorum. You need to get your ticket online. It is not impossible, and you can wait like the rest of us. If you come and stand outside at a Beyonce show, you're blocking the runway for everybody to walk in. So you are not contributing to the atmosphere. Order your tickets online, pre-order them.
Hey, there's always resale tickets. They're going to be like $5,000 a piece when they're marked up by the resellers. But yeah, technically, if you miss the original primary ticket price, then you can always just get resale online.
Yes, or you can just be respectful and just watch from home. They're gonna release a video of the concert.
Yeah, someone's always going to have a bootleg video online, and then they'll either get sued by the FBI or they'll make a lot of money in views.
Exactly.
There we go. All right. So Laura said she stood in line for 6 hours before finding out that the concert was sold out. Is that a logical thing? Like, I would think that if it's a popular concert in 1991, like Johnny Gill, that it would be a kind of a thing where there's a long line, it's stretching out into the ethersphere, and maybe by the time they get to like the first, second, or third person in line, they already can tell you immediately without a long wait, hey, it's sold out. Like, Do you have to wait 6 hours before finding out that a concert's sold out? Really?
She's probably one of those people like me. I wouldn't trust the next person walking past saying they sold out. I'm like, fuck you. I'm gonna hear it myself.
Okay, understandable. And then, just as Laura says she'll do anything for Johnny Gill tickets, Steve reveals that he has a couple of them. He's got them in his hand right now. And he starts to get playful with Laura as to, hey, like, maybe you could come with me, maybe not. Now, this is a particular moment I don't even think the audience got, or maybe the writers just weren't aware that they wrote this joke. But Steve was just like, "Oh, look at what I have here, Johnny Gill tickets. My. And as you know, Andrew, that's the name of his signature song. My. No, it's not his signature song.
I didn't know that. You just taught me that.
Wait, how do you know about Johnny? How do you know about the adultness of Johnny Gill and you don't know his? I mean, my. You know that song, right?
Do song titles really mean anything in this universe? I think we should just go off the feeling of the song.
Okay, but you've heard the song, right? So what? How do you know Johnny Gill? Like, what songs do you know from him?
I don't know any of his songs. I just know that he's very sexual. I know that because my aunt used to talk about him all the time.
Oh my God, jeez! I mean, yeah, look, I wasn't alive or I was a very little tyke when Johnny Gill was hot, but yeah, no, I mean, I have an affinity for '90s R&B, and that's just one of those iconic bedroom songs. So I'm surprised. Anyway, yeah. So when Steve was like, my, I thought that was like a joke referring to Johnny Gill's famous song title, but no reaction from the audience. And maybe that's a joke that the writers intended, like, hey, wink, wink, or maybe they didn't know. I don't know, but I'm surprised that that didn't get anything.
Feeling that they knew. And I don't think the audience like just got it. Maybe the audience was like, "Oh, okay, I see what they did there." Because sometimes, people are like, call out, I see you. Or the other side was maybe it went over their heads. And that could be because the audience maybe wasn't majority people who listened to that music.
Possibly, very possibly. But I implore you, Andrew, watch the music video for My. It is a mood. Listen to those lyrics, take off your red dress. I mean, Johnny gets as specific as you want him to get. I believe Kenny G is on the soprano saxophone. If there is somebody who embodies a saxophone soprano that will somehow get you and get your clothes off in the bedroom in the 90s, it's Kenny G. So yeah, when you get a chance, you will watch the Johnny Gill music video and you will wonder how the fuck did Family Matters think that this was a great reference for a TGIF sitcom.
I can only imagine the fact that Kenny G is present tells me everything.
He's not present in the video. He's just playing a saxophone. He's unseen. And thank God he's unseen. Because when you have a sexy black man like Johnny Gill, you have a sexy black woman in the music video, and then what? You have this curly haired Jewish white guy like playing saxophone in the back. Like, it's not even gonna fit. It's like, sorry. Like, I don't mean to sound racist or whatever, but yeah, Kenny G's just not gonna fit that mood.
Nobody thought Kenny G was attractive.
Great man, and he's given me some great moods, great experiences. But yes, he's a man who plays the saxophone. That's what we'll say.
Yes, he is giving me music that has scarred my ears for years. So thank you, Kenny G.
Thank you, Kenny G. Yes, he did. He definitely has his critics. All right. So, Laura has an immediate reaction that I find interesting to Steve's playful bribery of, getting these Johnny Gill tickets. I thought that Laura was going to say like, please, Steve, I'll do anything. But no, her immediate reaction is to pull Steve up by the shirt and threaten him like, you better give me my tickets right now.
I like that reaction for Laura. That was the best thing to do. And she should have just bullied Steve out of those tickets and be like, they are mine because you flaunted them in my face and I waited for hours.
And she could have followed through with that because, she throws like Steve, I think behind the center couch. Steve falls on the floor. Steve has a reaction to that I didn't expect. He actually gives Laura that face of like, really? Like, he just this very dissatisfied look, like, I give you cake and you reward me with poop? Like, what is this? You should be thankful.
He looked like he enjoyed it to me.
Did he? Oh,
He enjoyed it where he was like, ooh, do it again.
I didn't catch that. I caught his dissatisfied look when he was like coming up from the ground from behind the center couch. So that's interesting. I have to look at that again. So of course Steve will only give Laura the Johnny Gill tickets if she goes to the concert with him as his date. Laura immediately rejects the idea. And then Steve just gave me the weirdest fucking image with this line. He was like, well, I guess you'll be stuck home with your principals while Johnny Gill sweats all over my mother. Do you remember that line?
I do remember that line. Wow. Because all I can imagine is Dr. Urkel, not his mom.
Like Dr. Urkel being so let down by the fact that Johnny Gill is taking the mom into the bedroom, or what?
Dr. Gill getting sweated on by Johnny Gill. That's what I was imagining.
Uh, okay.
Because I can't even imagine Urkel's mom right now, but all I can imagine is her, but just a small little doctor man getting sweated on.
Hey, you know what? Honestly, a sign of the times of how men were ashamed to like traditionally feminine things like male East R&B very well could have been Dr. Urkel, Herb Urkel, who wants to go to the concert with Steve, and maybe he's like masquerading as a woman just so he doesn't feel ashamed.
I can see that. I can see that. Yeah. Men are very like sensitive when it comes to R&B music. So I can see them like impersonating Mrs. Urkel so that way he can touch Johnny.
Yeah, and touch Johnny he will, I hope. Yeah, I don't know. I saw that line from Steve and I was like, where do you start with that? I mean, the fact that Steve isn't aware of how sad it is that he's going to see Johnny Gill with his mother of all people, the awkwardness of seeing your parent like just be serenaded by Johnny Gill and she's all horny and Johnny Gill's doing all his sweaty singing towards her. I mean, it was just that one line, Johnny Gill sweating all over my mother. It just produced so much imagery in my head. It was great.
I don't
Yeah, well, because I got nothing better to do than to think about Steve Urkel and his weird shit.
It brings you joy, and that is a good thing. I would imagine very random things about Steve if it made
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I appreciate the physical comedy dance that happens here with Steve and Laura at the end of this cold open when Laura is hesitatingly like she's kind of like doing a little bit of a lean with her body toward the tickets, like I want to get the tickets. It's coming from a place of hesitation, but then she's just like walking back because she's like, oh God, but if I get the tickets, then I got to be with Steve. And Steve is playing along. He's just like, like he's doing the same kind of dance with his body as well. And then it gets to a moment where Laura is just giving in and she's just like, fine. And then I think Steve just kind of puts his headphones back on. He puts his Walkman back on, plays You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. And he's like, da 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 da. You can't touch this means you can't touch my goddamn Johnny Gill tickets because, these are mine and you're not going to touch it until the night of when you go out with me.
that is it was so funny. They have this chemistry that's building that I'm just like, yeah, this is what I've been waiting for.
Yes, but can you take 8 more years of it?
Thank goodness we only get this good energy between the two of them for 4 seasons.
Scene 1. Okay, so I gotta say, appetizer and dessert for me in this scene. Andrew, if you want to pull me out of a bad mood, make me smile and laugh all the day long, have Carl be in a fucking tantrum and Harriet respond with the most witty, biting sarcasm. I love this entire scene where, of course, Carl is coming in from a bad day of work and he's just like, throwing this tantrum. I basically explained it already, but I just wanted to know what were your thoughts about it? If you liked it, if you didn't like it, like what did you think?
Don't like this scene.
Oh, really?
The thing that I do like in this scene is my favorite part of the episode, though. So it
Oh.
sounds so weird. But Carl, in his frustration, does something that I have done multiple times in my life, where something as simple as opening up a jar to get a pickle can cause such chaos. And then once you have the jar open and you can't reach your hand inside, what do? You reach the heaviest object near you and smash it open. And that is what I have done multiple times when I have like a bad day. And
Oh, no, no, no. I love that. And I so relate to that. I had a moment like that the other day. And my poor wife, because my poor wife, Tony, she is very much about organization and being able to find things where they should be. And I remember loading the dishwasher when I was in the house just by myself when she was at work. And I was in such a pissy, shitty mood about something that from loading the dishwasher to taking the clean dishes and putting them back in the cabinets, you would have thought that a 5-year-old child who was just grumpy and moody was doing this because everything was just messy. It wasn't where it needed it to be, and I just didn't care. I was just like slamming things. I was just taking it out on the poor dishwasher dishes, and then cut to a day later where my wife is just like, Jonathan, what is going? I can't find the Tupperware. The Tupperware shouldn't be where the pots and pans are. What's going on?
I get it. And this is also why I live alone, because if I'm in one of my moods and I'm annoyed, don't ask me where anything is because I've probably thrown it across the room. It's somewhere and I'm going to find it 3 days later after I destroy my apartment trying to find the thing that I threw in the corner out of anger. And then if you're a person who's like, well, I don't know where my stuff is, I'm going to look at you and then throw you out. It's very good that I live alone.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's the thing about marriage. I mean, look, when I was a bachelor living alone and I had these moods, I would just own it. And if I didn't find anything, I would be frustrated by that. But I would also take responsibility of the fact that, like, oh, okay, that was me and my bad mood or whatever. But when you live with someone else who clearly has better ways of managing their moods, it's like it's this dance you got to do where it's like, all right, like, yes, I can be angry, yes, I can have a bad day, but I don't necessarily need to inflict it on things that my significant other also needs to use and needs to find. So it's a dance that I'm learning, this thing called marriage. But yeah, let's get into scene one in the kitchen. I mean, first of all, I was kind of rolling my eyes starting off this scene because we get another instance of Carl complaining about Eddie not doing a simple task as instructed. Carl is dressed up in his police uniform. He's assumingly coming home after a day of work and complaining to Harriet that he's asked Eddie to empty the incinerator God knows how many times, and Eddie still hasn't done it. Because I'm dumb, I had to define on the internet what incinerator was, and it means an apparatus for burning waste material, especially industrial waste, at high temperatures until it is reduced to ash. Okay, in simple speak, let me ask you this. Maybe you know this more than me. Is this like kind of related to like the ashes, like from a chimney, a fireplace, a radiator?
Yeah, essentially, most people who have them for their home would use them to burn personal things. I don't know if you like experienced it as a kid or heard stories of it that people would go through people's garbage to steal their information for their identity. So to prevent that, some people would have an incinerator in their home. And imagine like a bigger paper shredder that burns everything inside of it, and then the ashes collect in a tray at the bottom of it. And then you just throw the ashes away so that way nobody could get your personal information off of your mail.
That's an interesting way to think about it. For security. Okay. Huh. I like that. When you were explaining it, I thought like, oh, okay, this is like another version of like cleaning out the lint tray from your dryer.
I mean, that's honestly what it kind of looks like. It just is this little tray that comes out of some of them look like an oven. Some of them look like, if it's a big one, like a giant boiler. But there's just this little tray and you just take it out and just dump the ashes.
All right. There you go. Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that. Okay. So I'm laughing. I'm so laughing right now at the way Harriet is engaged with Carl's anger. Not at all. Not at all, by the way. She's just like, she has that attitude of, okay, this is like the 560th time, Carl, that you've ranted to me about Eddie. Like, whatever. Like, it really goes nowhere. She's mocking him because she's heard this one too many times. Carl says something like, Harriet, I've told Edward the incinerator needs to be empty, but it's not. Oh, I love this. You know what it is, Harriet? And Harriet is mockingly like, full? And Carl is like, yes, Harriet, it's full. And then Harriet just dives in deeper with the mockery. So what you're saying is it's full. And I was thinking about you because I feel like you would give this kind of energy to somebody if they're really, really getting on your nerves, Andrew. I could be wrong. I mean,
Would 100%. I hate nagging. You guys will hear me say that on this podcast so many times. I hate nagging. And if you come in nagging about something, I'm going to mock you to your face so you get so upset that you stop.
and do they? And do they stop in your situation?
Typically, at some point, they either get so annoyed with me that they try to fight, or they're like, okay, I'm not going to win this battle of pettiness. Let me stop.
Interesting. All right. So, Harriet, even though I love the mockery, I found it confusing that she was like excusing Eddie's behavior very nonchalantly because I think she knows she's smart. She's a mom of a teenager. She knows that teenagers are just the worst procrastinators ever. So she says that, oh, Eddie mentioned that he'll just get to the incinerator tomorrow, but Harriet should know that that's not really the case. Carl is just making me laugh with his exaggerated childlike impersonation of Eddie as he continues ranting. He's like, Harriet, it's always tomorrow with that boy. Edward, go clean up your room. Tomorrow, Dad. Pass the salt, Edward. Tomorrow, Dad. And then Carl peaks his frustration with this like uncomprehendable like noise. Like he just throws his hands in the air. Just you probably have had that moment as well where you just get so frustrated that you just start to make sounds that are like a bad version of like speaking tongue in church.
If that's all the expletives I use, then yes.
Yeah. 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 Carl aggressively goes through the fridge and frustratingly asks Harriet when she's going to the store because they're out of root beer. And I love Harriet's witty callback to like her comeback callback to Eddie's excuse. Tomorrow, dear. Like, I just love that. And the scene gets even better from here because Carl holds up an empty carton of milk from the fridge and asks Harriet, which one of our gangster children did this? I laughed out loud at that line because I just did not expect that kind of way to describe the Winslow children. I just loved it.
They say it's a slippery slope. When you put an empty carton of milk back in the fridge, you become a gangster.
Put an empty carton of milk in the fridge, and all of a sudden you are selling heroin and ruining your life.
And wearing crop tops. It's a dangerous road.
Wearing crop tops? Wait, like the sexy belly girl summer shirt? And you're selling heroin? Is that a vibe that heroin drug dealers have? Is wearing crop tops while selling what?
Who knows? Crop tops lead to drug use, so it could be all of that.
I thought it was just like a sexy girl from the hood vibe. I didn't know that that was something that heroin drug dealers wore. Okay.
I would imagine that you have seen a few living where you live. That's like the meth county of the woods.
You know what? I don't because I don't commiserate with those kind of people. Like I like it, like those are the kind of people where I could pass by them and they have that very trashy poor white people thing about them, but I've never actually seen them do the deed. So yes and no, if that makes sense.
I'm gonna go with that because the next time you go on a DoorDash and there's a weird smell when you get out the car, look for a meth head. I'm pretty sure you'll find one.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Vermont is where I live, and yes, unfortunately, we have. I mean, it's a nice contrast. Not only are we one of the most popular tourist states in the country for fall foliage, for skiing, for cabin vacations, but yes, we do have very methy people here. So yes,
I will just say this to everybody listening. This is not specific to John. If you have a suburban neighborhood in your state, you have meth. It is everywhere.
well, I mean, not only suburban but rural. When you have a rural area like Vermont where it's very farmy, very cows, all that stuff, just know that because it's all middle of nowhere and remote, people don't have too many things to do. And when people don't have too many things to do and not too many places to go, their mental health goes down the toilet and they play around with things like
Y'all learned something today.
lesson. Oh boy. All right. Anyway, so Harriet continues her sarcasm in this scene to Carl's tantrums and says that it's a plot. The kids are here, Carl, to deliberately make your life worse by draining the house of milk and root beer. I had two thoughts for this. One, I can understand the mistake of leaving an empty carton of milk in the fridge. I've done that before. I'm very forgetful, so I will excuse that mistake being done at least once. And also, two, like, while yes, it's not the end of the world to have an empty carton in the fridge, I feel like Harriet could kind of understand where Carl is coming from and in the guise of a model parent say like, all right, let's remind the children, maybe even Rachel, Mama Winslow, if something is empty, if something is running out in the fridge, make a note of it, put it on the grocery list, staple it or magnet it to the fridge, and we'll get it. Let's all work together so that we all don't get pissed off when we don't have milk for our cereal.
I can see that. I don't know the like fine points of cow juice. It's not something that I partake in, but I do understand that people are very sensitive about it. So, like, I can get Carl's frustration. He wanted, which sounds disgusting to me, cow juice and root beer together. But okay, you enjoy your drink.
Well, you as a vegan that's not like the biggest fan of dairy, soda, milk, all that stuff, what's your equivalent? Like if you ran out of something in the fridge and you were like so tied to that liquid, like, oh my God, like what's that liquid that you would run out of that would piss you off when you just didn't expect to run out of it?
That would probably be water. But the hard part about it is I can't be upset at anybody else.
Only yourself. You can only look inward because you're living by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, because I would be like, Andrew, really? You put an empty thing of water in here? but I am like obsessed with water. So for me, ooh, now that you say it, John, I did date somebody who lived with me for a week. And my Simply Lemonade, they put it back in there with a splash of juice in there. Needless to say, we broke up that next day.
Wait, so Simply Lemonade, I know that brand. That's a brand of lemonade. And you're saying that they put a splash of a different juice that wasn't lemonade juice?
I left a splash of it in the container and put it back in my refrigerator.
Oh,
That was the problem. And like I can get like the container being in the fridge. I don't care about that. I'm just gonna throw it away anyways. But to leave a little splash of juice, just so that was the part that upset me. And I literally called him and was like, "Hey, we gotta break up. This is crazy."
yeah, this is disrespectful. Like either like own it and empty out the whole thing or leave enough for me to drink and be satisfied.
Leave enough to tease me. That is like a personal insult. Like you just called my mom a bitch. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments where, I look at like a teeny amount of milk left and I want to have cereal so badly. And I'm like, all right, I think we can make this happen. But no, I need a big bowl of cereal with a nice thing of milk with it. And you're giving me enough to just fill my fingertip. I would be pissed.
Get it? I can get it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, and funny enough, going back to this scene, I'm thinking to myself before the line is actually said out loud by Harriet, I'm like, God, I mean, Carl is just having this random tantrum. He must have had a really bad day. If he's so frustrated to the point that he's trying to put his hand through the pickle jar to get a pickle out, and it's not working. The hand won't fit, so he resorts to breaking the glass jar with his police beating stick. And Harriet filled out for me. She was like, Carl, what are you doing? Like, did you have a bad day? Is something going on?
I wish you would have broken so bad. I was like, yes, break in. I want to see the reaction. But it was hilarious. And I love that Harriet, this whole time she knew, she's like, something's bigger than Carl just nagging today. What is happening?
Yeah, this is unusual. You wouldn't be concerned that glass would be shattering all over the place and someone would step on it and bleed? Like, I would be so anxious about that emergency.
That's called natural selection because everybody else in the family didn't cut their feet, but you did. That's kind of on you because I know you heard the glass break. So I can't really take responsibility for that. And I can't take responsibility for the fact that I was hungry and couldn't get the pickle. It's survival instinct at that point, and you just have to deal with it.
Oh my God, you're a savage. I love that. Oh my God. Anyway, so Carl refusing Harriet's observation that he's in a foul mood. It was amusing because, we'll get to that line in a moment. But like, as Carl is refuting the fact that he's in a bad mood, he's refusing that from Harriet. Rachel walks down, and I mean, Thelma Hopkins always looked gorgeous, but she looked especially gorgeous in this scene. All of a sudden, her hair is looking all dolled up, freshly curled, freshly done. I think she has like this polka dotted springtime dress. She's got red heels on. I was like, wow, Rachel, you look so great. Where are you going? But that's never explained. She just looks so good, like she's going out somewhere.
She does. She looks like she's about to enjoy a summer day. Her hair is so bouncy and curly. I was like, I like this look on Rachel.
Is there a name to that kind of hairdo, or should we just call it bouncy Rachel hairdo?
I'm just gonna call it bouncy Rachel hair because I don't know what you would call that. Technically, I mean, it's curled, but then it was styled and it just looked good. I was like, okay, I like this hair.
Yeah. Reginald Val Johnson, again, I mean, he's already made me laugh enough in this scene, and he continues to, with his physical comedy choices, because if you remember, he aggressively and tensely bumps his head up and down to Harriet when he gets all defiant about Harriet's statement on his mood. My mood is not foul, Harriet. It's fair, okay? I'm in a fair mood, Harriet. My mood is fair. And literally, for those of you not watching the video, like with each word that I just said from Carl, I'm just bobbing my head up and down to really, really hammer in the point that Carl is in a fair mood, not foul.
I don't see how his head was not pounding after all of that shaking. I would have had the worst headache.
Yeah. But, and you know what? And Reginald being in his, I'm going to say like mid 30s at the time, he very well could have had a bottle of Advil on standby for that aggressive head bobbing that he was doing. So he commits, man. When he has an acting job to do, he will commit full stop. So I was loving it. So Carl notices Rachel looking at him like, what the hell is wrong with you? And he just snaps at Rachel like, what the hell are you looking at? And Rachel has an attitude kind of like Harriet. Good question. Like she's just like, okay, all right, no need to snap at me. I'm gonna give you some attitude if you're giving me attitude.
He has that intuition that a lot of Black women gain after dealing with a lot of straight men, where it's like, okay, you're having your temper tantrum, but men in your bracket don't know how to express that
Yeah.
emotion
Yeah.
without it turning into this passive aggressive but violent nature. So I'm
Yep.
just gonna let you have that. Because she had that look like, okay, you stay over there, Carl.
Yeah, something I've learned from therapy, and something I sometimes succeed at, sometimes I fail at, is the difference between literally losing your shit, breaking stuff, unfairly putting that tantrum on somebody like it's their fault. There's that, and then there's being able to breathe and just say simply out loud in a very measured tone, all right, I'm very angry right now, to be honest with you. There is a tendency in the man world to be very passive aggressive and kind of say other things that don't really directly address what you're feeling. But I found personally that, wow, instead of just being like, okay, well, looks like you are the mathematician genius of the world, like all that shit, instead of just saying that, like, you know what? I'm pissed right now. To be honest, I'm very pissed at you. Like it's a different feel. It's a different vibe. And I'm learning that the latter option is a better option.
It is not easy when it's something that you don't do all the time. I have my ways of getting out my anger. If I'm angry beyond belief, I have a punching bag and I use my baseball bat and beat the crap out that thing. I
Yeah.
get all of that physical aggression out so that way I don't take it out on other people. Because I'm terrible with people who are passive aggressive when they're angry. Because
Yeah.
then I take it as, so you want to fight? Like, that's what you want to do. You're like being so rude to me, then that means that's what you want to happen. So then I'm gonna be like, okay, let's go outside. Well, we gotta get your aggression out some kind of way.
Yeah. Let's tussle. Let's fucking tussle, motherfucker.
Hmm.
Oh boy. All right. So and I love Rachel. Maybe this was Rachel's like way of like rubbing it into Carl. Like, hey, you're gonna be angry at me for no reason? Well, how about I put my hand through this pickle jar very smoothly, my by comparison, much thinner, leaner hand through this pickle jar, effortlessly take the pickle out, and then just saunter away into the living room.
She knew it. She said, she's like, I can tell you wanted this pickle. It's mine.
Yep. Yep. And we have a hitting joke there. We do have a hitting joke because, you look at Carl's chunky hand struggling to fit through the jar and Rachel's leaner, skinnier hand. And it just kind of made me think like, oh, we haven't heard like a direct fat joke to Carl in a while in like verbal words. So this was like a subtle visual too, like, haha, Carl's a fat man.
I love that they gave us this little nod here. I do have to say, Family Matters, I really hope that you guys change your choices in foods in this next couple of seasons because a pickle to me does not seem like something I would want to eat when I'm.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, looking at slimy, juicy pickles in a jar, it's disgusting. My wife, she's orgasmic over that sort of thing. She loves anything pickle. But me, I mean, I look at that shit and I'm reminded of the movie Holes. I don't know if you've ever seen Holes.
Not seen holes, but everybody says it's very good.
Would I say it's like an Oscar caliber movie? No. I mean, as a child who has read the book and you see the movie, it's fun. I think it's fun for a kid to watch. But yeah, that scene where Shia LaBeouf's character and the little black kid that's with him in this summer boot camp deserty situation, and they have nothing to eat but like these disgusting looking slimy pickles from a jar. I would rather just go somewhere and drink sour milk rather than you look at that.
I find pickles to be repulsive. I don't know if anybody is going to remember it, but I think it was a Mad TV skit. And I feel like Dave Chappelle was on the episode,
Oh.
but he was like playing a homeless man on the subway carrying this jar of pickles until later in the skit we find out that's supposed to be him like shitting in that jar and he's carrying
Oh.
it with him. Ever since then as a kid, I'm like, nope, I don't want pickles. It was the most disgusting thing in the world.
Damn. Okay. You sure that wasn't Chappelle's show?
Oh no, it was something with a jar of pickle that was supposed to be shit, and I think it was Mad TV, but it could have been Chappelle's show.
Okay. Because the imagery that I'm getting is actually Damon Wayans' homeless character from In Living Color. And this was a scene that I only saw like in the blooper reel, but there was a skit with him and Jim Carrey as a homeless person. And Damon and Jim, they have this sort of secret speak as comedians who wanted to one up each other, that they wanted to like outgross each other in a skit. So it ended up being a scene where like Damon and Jim, as these homeless characters, were sharing slimy pickles out of a jar. Like literally, Damon was eating a bite out of it, putting it back in the jar, and then Jim was taking a bite out of the same pickle. And yeah, it's it's just yeah,
That
Damon.
makes me want to vomit so bad.
I know it's gross, but you know how comedians can be. Sometimes, in order to one up each other, to shock value humor each other, they just do the nastiest things. So that's a little tidbit if you want to, look at that in living color blooper on YouTube for those of you listening and watching. Okay. So another weird imagery line comes into play in this scene one. After Carl exits into the living room in his big tantrum fuss, Harriet and Rachel, they're left standing there in the kitchen with those what the fuck is wrong with him facial expressions. And then Rachel, after a moment, says, who put a flapjack in his shorts? Which is a saying that I've never heard before, but and I know it's not supposed to be taken literally, Andrew, but I'm also like, I couldn't help but take it literally. I was just like, you know what? If a pancake was going through my shorts, I wouldn't necessarily be angry. I'd just be like, oh God, this is weird. What the hell? Like, but I don't know. I just found it funny, like the idea of like, I'm so pissed because a flapjack or a pancake is wafting through my penis.
I couldn't imagine the scenario happening when she said it. And I just started laughing because I'm like, how do you get a flapjack in your pants? And now I need to know where this originated from.
I mean, I guess you just flip it so aggressively from the pan that somehow
I that
yeah, I guess it just like does like a little boomerang flippity flippity flippity, and then it just somehow gets through your very loose sweatpants. I don't know.
it's an interesting one where I'm just like, I want to know. It had to happen to somebody. This thing has to have a like source, and now I need to know it.
Yeah, we need to research. We need to research. And this is where I feel, at least, I'm curious about your thoughts. This is where we just take a complete fucking 180. Scene two in the living room. My main course pretty much is like scene two through like the rest of this A story, which is why are we wrapping up a sitcom season like this? It just seemed like an oddly down way to wrap up a season, but we find out the source of Carl's temper tantrum. We go from like Carl's temper tantrum being treated as like this comedic, like exaggerated thing. Now it just has this very heavy, serious, dramatic element to it. So, your thoughts as we go into the scene?
This is my junk food here.
Of course.
Carl watching the news story of what happened to lead him to this dark place of shooting somebody and letting somebody die really did not sit well with me.
Mm.
I really was like, I just like you just said, I was like, this is what we're ending the show on. Like, there was like no happiness that came from this scene where I was like, really? This is how we're going out? And at first I was like, okay, maybe we'll get some kind of like fun tidbit here at the end of all of this of Carl being up, watching this story about the shooting. But then I'm just like, okay, we're going to have to deal with somebody who has not dealt with an adverse life event through any type of professional help. And we're now going to watch this man try to cope and see what happens.
You make a good point. You know what? I didn't even think about that going into this. Like, and I guess it's not a surprise because going back to season one, where Carl was like whining about a dog that passed away in his childhood, and it could have been taken as like just a sad moment, like feel bad. But there you go, Harriet as the perfect wife, snapping him out of it. Carl, that was like 55 fucking years ago when you were like 2 years old. Get some therapy. You know what? You have a good point. And in terms of this traumatic event that happened while Carl was on duty, uh therapy should be offered when in his police department. I don't know if that was a thing in the 90s, but it certainly could help him process things like this. And it clearly looks like Carl hasn't really done that sort of work. So for him to just sort of like for the past year, like linger and watch that news footage, I think it's a great point that you bring up. So yeah, let's get into it. I mean, first of all, this scene too is a very short scene. We kind of get short spurts of scenes leading into like the climax of this A story. Harriet is asking Carl what is bothering him. Carl is sadly reflective as he says that we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary since it happened. Don't you love it when they do that? It.
They're like, it happened. But the zombie apocalypse? Like, give us something.
My God. So Harriet tells Carl that this unidentified incident that they're talking about wasn't his fault, and he even got a commendation. But Carl doesn't feel like he deserved it because an innocent person died. So immediately I had to look up the word commendation because, again, I don't know words. And it looks like it means an award that involves special praise. So kind of like those police officer ceremonies that they typically have, like, oh, for your service and saving this dog from this building, officer, we give you the courage award, like that kind of thing.
Mhm.
All right.
Just like that. Typically, there's a little pomp and circumstance to it where it's like you went above and beyond.
Here's this colorful, mustardy looking ribbon.
Yes. No, go out there and dodge bullets.
There you go. All right, so we wrap up this very short scene as sadly as it began when Carl tells Harriet, I cannot let this go. And then you see him rub his temples in this very sad, traumatized way as he goes upstairs. The camera zooms in on Harriet's sad face. And then we get into scene 3 in the living room. This is where Carl doesn't do himself any favors. He's depressed. He's watching TV in his robe in what I assume is very late at night in the living room. Everyone else is asleep at this point. And were you like me when it's revealed that, like, as Harriet is coming downstairs in her bedtime robe and she's wondering out loud to Carl why he's awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, it seems like 3 o'clock in the morning plays a running theme in this episode. Because if you remember, like earlier in the cold open, Laura stood outside at 3 o'clock in the morning to get Johnny Gill concert tickets. And between that unfortunate scenario where Laura didn't get the tickets and this scenario where Carl is reliving the unfortunate incident through news footage at 3 o'clock in the morning, do you think that the staff is telling us that 3 o'clock in the morning is typically when things don't happen well? Like, if you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, rest assured that shit ain't gonna turn out the way you want it to.
So it's a real thing. It's called the witching hour. And if you believe in certain kind of mythology or like superstitions, 3 a.m. is the witching hour. And that would be the hour that the devil is most active, and that some people believe. So like even myself, I believe it. At 3 a.m., I will not be outside. The one time I was outside at 3 a.m., I was scared for my life. Like I'm going to die. And it's just a part of superstition and religion. So it does make sense that Laura was out at 3 a.m. She didn't get what she wanted. Carl's up at 3 a.m. watching a recording of this incident over again. It all plays into the same hand.
Wow. All right. So I would imagine, like, say, my very God-fearing Christian-y mom would definitely buy into what you're saying. Like, oh, if
I
you want.
doubt that.
Oh, no, no. Oh, because it has to do with the witchcraft.
Yes, I think she would be like, no, it's witchcraft.
Okay. Because, like, you know how it is. There's this weird thing with Christians where they kind of believe in superstition sometimes, but they kind of don't.
The mark of the beast, that's superstition. But my God, don't play Pokemon. That's witchcraft. And it's like, what is it?
Christians inconsistent? Nah, not possible. Oh boy. Anyway, I literally wrote in this next note, Andrew, I clearly am having the 12:49 a.m. giggles as I observe like Carl telling Harriet he couldn't sleep. He figured he'd make a sandwich. And in reference to Carl's tantrum a couple scenes earlier, and to obviously lighten the tension, thank God we hear some laughter from the studio audience. Harriet was like, well, I hope you didn't beat up on the baloney. Keep in mind again, I am tired. This is late as I'm watching this episode. And I was cracking the fuck up because it almost sounded like a euphemism for masturbation.
Exactly what it sounded like. I was like, they said beat your meat without saying it. I screamed.
Carl, I mean, you know what? And maybe Carl did need to beat up on the baloney to get himself out of this fucking like traumatized ruckus. So it sounds fucked up, but sometimes masturbation can be a great temporary distraction from trauma.
Never gonna tell somebody to not use a coping mechanism. Sometimes you just gotta get a nut, and it's okay.
Yeah, because it's either that or like what? I mean, are you going to drink yourself to death?
Right. Would you rather drink yourself to death or just play with yourself? I'm gonna go with the latter because it's gonna keep you safer in the end. So no judgment. Like if you gotta do it, go ahead. Just not in the living room at 3 a.m.
Especially when there's a family in the house, anybody could walk down and see you. Like, Carl, take that to the bathroom, turn the radio on so nobody can hear you like you're a fucking teenager back in the 1940s. Like, just make that private.
Take a long shower, Carl.
Yeah. God, you're damn it. You're bringing me back to my awkward young man years. Stuff like that is why I'm glad I don't live at home anymore because, the freedom that you have when you could live in your own house and you could do whatever the fucking adult thing that you want to do. Oh, it's great.
It's so much fun. I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there do it. Sometimes I'm just home and I'm like, I just want to spill water on my floor because I can. And
There
I
you
will
go.
get a cup of water and just dump it on the floor.
There you go. Adult independence is so liberating. All right. So Harriet, understandably saddened by Carl rewatching news coverage of the incident that has traumatized him for the past year. Okay. I want to get your thoughts on this story as I explain it because the news coverage breaks down what exactly happened that Carl is so traumatized by. So, to my understanding, a man attempting to rob a convenience store, holding an elderly man customer hostage, fatally shooting said elderly man before Carl eventually captured the suspect. And then we see Officer Carl Winslow being interviewed by the news reporter after she describes all this. And I think Carl explains that the suspect didn't appear to be rational and claimed he was going to shoot the hostage if the police didn't let him get to his car. And Carl decided to trust the suspect at his word and let him get to his car, but the suspect just went apeshit and shot the hostage anyway. So hence Carl has this lingering guilt of like, fuck, I shouldn't have trusted that suspect, which I could understand. Do I have that right? Is that the gist of it?
Yes, it is the story of Peter Parker. This is Peter Parker, Spider Man's actual origin story. And it was Uncle Ben who died.
Oh, they ripped it off from Spider-Man? Is that what you're saying?
It's literally the exact same story from Spider Man.
Okay. So, hearing all this, what are you on the side on? Are you like, I mean, this episode is clearly trying to tell us that, Carl, this is not your fault. Do you agree with that or do you dispute that?
Agree that it's not Carl's fault. He didn't know that this man was going to shoot the hostage. And being a good police officer, you can't just be like, I'm going to execute you to prevent this from happening. So, Carl, there's two outcomes here. He could have killed the crime person. The crime person. Oh my God, why can I not form words today? He could have killed the suspect, and then he would have had to deal with killing somebody on his hands, or he went with what he thought was going to be the right thing, letting the suspect go, getting everybody out of danger, but then somebody still died. So I don't think Carl should feel responsible here. This isn't his fault. This is just one of those situations where the bad is going to be bad on both sides.
Okay. Interesting that you say that because I think the moment that Carl in the news footage said the suspect didn't appear to be rational, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, so you kind of got a sense that this suspect was mentally ill, and I don't know. I think if I was in Carl's position, if I see a mentally ill person holding a man hostage, and that mentally ill person claims that all he wants to do is just get to his car, and maybe this will not make me a great police officer. I would second guess letting that person go to the car. I would think, oh, I don't know, you don't seem to be of the right mind. I don't know if I can completely trust you. So, God, Andrew, this feels weird to say this, but I feel like just like that flapjack in the shorts, I would try to do like this weird. I would try to do like the perfect boomerang shot. Like like take this, take a chance with a gunshot, and hopefully that gunshot swerves around the elderly man that's being taken hostage and takes the mentally ill man down. But life doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. And this is something that I've learned through first responder and working with the police. That person was already dead before you acted.
Oh.
Like the decision was already there. That person was dead. And you're here to try to prevent that. But the outcome wasn't going to change at this point. The decisions were made, things happen. And at this point, we got to keep moving forward. Because if you do sit and linger on this, you're preventing somebody else from getting help. So it sucks. It's a terrible scenario. I mean, in a perfect world, we would be able to know, like, hey, this person is lying, or this person is just hyped up on drugs, and maybe this will all work out well. But there was never going to be a good ending for this for Carl.
And it makes me wonder, like, how long has he been in the police force? Because I would assume that you gain enough experience as a police officer out there on the beat dealing with dangerous stuff like this. I would think that you would develop a thick skin and you would go into a situation like this by this point, understanding, okay, it would be great to have an innocent person come out alive. That may not happen, and I have to be accepting of that. Know that it's not my fault. Yes, it'll be grieving, it'll be difficult, but I've got to find a way to accept that and move on. rather than do what Carl just did, which I think it seems to be a rookie thing to do, which is like, oh my God, like this thing from a year ago. Oh God. I mean, when you're going through as a Chicago police officer, when you could be going through stuff like this day after day after day, I feel like you would go batshit insane if you just let that shit weigh on you like that.
Most of them do. Most cops don't get help for things like this. And it's because of the environment in police departments, which to this day hasn't changed much. But if you're going to get psychological help, you're seen as a risk, you're seen as unreliable, you're seen as weak. So, in a culture that doesn't support that as a part of what they do when it's needed, it's common. I mean, if you look at domestic violence situations, things that end in like a murder suicide and it was a cop taking it on his family, those numbers are astronomically high for people who are police. And a lot of it stems from that I don't get over this situation because when somebody dies, it's completely different than something that you can fix with a manager or something like that. And I say that as somebody who has had people die with me on the phone, where no matter what I did, the decision was already there. And even though I know that as I'm acting through whatever I'm dealing with for this person, it's still going to stick with me because I'm like, well, I can't be like, hey, they can just go get a refund or a return. It's like, oh, those last minutes of that person's life were spent with me. Myself, therapy worked out as a gym to be like, okay, let's sort these things out. But in a culture where it's like, no, you don't need to get mental health services. You don't need to go get help with this. PTSD, it doesn't exist for cops. You just got to shake it off and that's like really what they go by, it's hard. It is so hard for them to actually speak out and get help. And then it leads to them hurting their family, hurting themselves, or hurting other people.
And I'm so glad that, as a former 911 operator that you shared this because it's really important information to digest. The lesson being that when you go through traumatic events like the one that Carl went through, keeping it bottled up and trying to move forward is going to have you end up like how Carl is a year later, where it's just lingering, where you think, I could have done something more, I could have done something more, when the alternative could have been, all right, almost immediately after this traumatizing incident happens, talk to somebody. Maybe it doesn't have to be a therapist. It could just start with letting loose and talking about it with your wife, Harriet, or a family member, a friend, a coworker, like just being able to talk about it, talk out loud about how grieving and frustrating and depressing this is, just being honest with yourself about it. I mean, it could do wonders. And had Carl done that, he probably wouldn't be in this situation a year later because that is a lot of grief to just maintain in your system.
It is. It's hard. Anybody who is listening, if you need help and you need to talk to somebody, especially if you're a first responder, like we're focusing on right now, call 988 nationwide. 988 is the number you can call just to speak to somebody. It's not about getting into treatment or therapy. Sometimes you just need to talk because this is one of those moments that can spiral and you're not even aware that you're spiraling from it. If you find yourself on a yearly basis going back to something like this, not an anniversary of remembrance or like, hey, let's move forward or showing respect to it, but if it takes you back to that trauma, that's something you want to talk to somebody about.
There you go. 988. They're definitely important to bring that up. So thank you so much for bringing that up. All right. So my last thoughts on this scene three, after Carl and Harriet are done replaying the news coverage, Harriet exclaims to Carl that this was a year ago and that this situation is not his fault. And Carl says he knows that in his head, but he's not sure that he knows that in his heart. And we ruin what is a very serious, meaningful moment with that same viral, dramatic scene closing music as we close in on Carl's emotional face, trying to process this year-long trauma. Yeah, I saw you shaking your head, Andrew. You probably were like, oh my God, that fucking music. They just had to end it with that.
I literally had to pause the episode at this moment, roll a blunt, and go for a walk because I was so infuriated. I'm like, so we're addressing this incredibly distraught matter with this music. I was like, you just lost me. With everything that could have been dramatic, you lost me.
I know. And you know what? In their defense, I mean, this is 1991. This is way before the internet, viral music, Instagram reels, TikTok stuff, like way before that. The Family Matters staff, all they were thinking was like, okay, let's just have some stock, dramatic scene background music to use over and over just so we don't keep on paying money for lots of different music. And the music that we heard not too long ago when Jimmy revealed himself as Harry and Rachel's father to Carl, it's going to be the same music to close out this scene. And now that you and I have seen many TikToks, many Instagram reels with people doing a parody of that, like, oh my god, it's that 90s sitcom vibe when you find out that someone has rolled up a blunt on the school recess sidewalk. Like we're always gonna have that in our head because of the damn internet, and it's just gonna ruin serious moments like this right here in this episode. So it's a curse that we're gonna have to live with, because I mean, we're gonna have a lot more dramatic moments like this with that fucking music in the background.
Funny thing is, for some moments, it matches the intensity of the situation. This is so heavy,
Yeah.
but it's like, what? I'm ready for scene 4.
All right. Well, thankfully, we get some comedic relief from this sad A story as we go into the kitchen. What do you think? I mean, because Steve is clearly going back to his grandmother grandson dynamic with Estelle, aka Mama Winslow. He's seeking her to figure out what to do with Laura not wanting to go out with him to the Johnny Gill concert. Thoughts about this scene?
Pacing for this episode is so weird.
It's odd.
Like, I had to put myself in like the mindset of, okay, when this originally aired, there was a commercial break in between.
Mhm.
So things lightened up for the people originally watching this. Because for me, going directly into the scene, I was like, I don't want to laugh. I
Yeah.
don't feel like this is a laughing moment. And man, did they give us a gem with Mama Winslow and the hunk-of-the-month calendar. And I'm like, this would be so much funnier had I not just watched what I watched.
Yeah, it was drop shock. It was. I totally agree. I'm so glad you brought up that point. In real time, you're watching this episode on a Friday night in 1991. Carl has his intense moment about the police officer situation. You get a commercial break. Okay, commercial break. It's gonna last like 3-4 minutes. Okay, let me take a breath. Let me get some cheese whiz. Let me get some. Let me take a huge shit because this has me filled with so much tension that I need to take a tense, stressful poop. And then after a breath, we come back and then we are lightening the mood with Steve and Estelle. In that context, it works. Like you, my first note was, okay, we go from to, yeah, upbeat music, Steve Urkel, hello, hello, like he's searching around the house trying to find the Winslows, hello, it was very strange. So I'm glad that you and I saw the same because we needed a moment. I think that. So did you literally take another break during the? Yeah, you did. Okay, so you took your own commercial break.
I did. Like, I stopped it and I was like, okay, let me consciously do this because I just wasn't paying attention to the scene. I literally had to rewind it because I was like, I missed everything that Steve and Mama Winslow were talking about. And I was like, let me do this how it would have happened on TV. I rewound back to Carl and the sad music. I paused it. I took 3 minutes to just clear my mind. And then I came back into the scene with Steve and Estelle, and I'm like, okay, I can get why we would be at this funny point now because I just sat through some commercials and now we're here.
There you go. Give that time to refresh, take a deep breath, and then let's get into the comedy. All right. So Mama Winslow enters with these gigantic manila envelopes to greet Steve with a, hey, sugar. And then Estelle and Steve, when they're standing together, I'm noticing that they're the exact same height. So either Rosetta Lenoir is really short or Jaleel is really tall. Which one is it?
I'm gonna go with Jaleel is taller than Estelle, but they had them at an angle where it kind of looked like they were the same height. Because I was like, I know Steve has been growing, and Rosetta Lenoir was short.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the thing of old age. For all we know, Rosetta Lenoir in her younger years was 5'10", 5'11". She could have been much taller than she is now. As you grow older, you just shrink. So that could be just a normal thing. All right. So Estelle reveals that she got her hunk of the month calendar in the mail. And my God, did you hear the females in the studio audience during this scene? They were just, woo! Like they were all about Estelle getting her man action.
Because that's the thing. I used to love the little man of the month calendars that people would have.
Do they still produce those?
They sure do. And they
Yeah.
are just as good where it's just like, ooh, Mr.
And then now for you in real life, did any particular month or man stand out in one of those calendars?
Way September because it's my birth month. So I'm
Oh,
like, ooh, what does Mr. September look like?
Yes. It's that beautiful transition between summer and fall where the weather is just perfect because it's not too hot, it's not too cool. Like, yeah, I think a perfect man would describe that.
The thing that I love about September is that it's literally baby making month.
Wow.
Most people get pregnant in the fall. So like my birth month is like, oh,
Now, why is that? Is there like a logic behind getting pregnant in September often?
no, I mean, I would imagine you're getting closer to the holidays, you're more indoors. So you're indoors with your partner, you're more likely going to have sex at some point. But definitely towards the fall and into winter, that's when most babies are conceived.
There you go. I'm glad you reminded me that it takes 9 months to get a baby out of the vagina. This is why my wife shouldn't have a baby with me because for a second there, I was like, I guess people are just fucking in August and then the baby just comes out of the hospital in September. No, it would make sense in the 9 month span of time, December, January, for them to conceive the baby and then the baby comes out in September. All right. Anyway, but wow, I guess we have some big ass poster sized calendars because again, I mean the Manila envelopes that Estelle was carrying were very. They seemed, at least to me, they seemed very huge.
Because they put the whole man on the calendar.
Yeah,
It's a big spread.
from head to toe. They're not missing a body part, are they?
They're not.
Clever exchange coming up right now with Steve and Estelle, where Steve wonders where Laura is, and Estelle is confused because she figured Steve and Laura would walk home from school together every day. And Steve is like, nope, I walk, and Laura usually runs very fast ahead of me, but she's very considerate because she always looks behind to see where I am.
I love that Steve knows his stalking has led to these changes in Laura's behavior.
Does he though? Does he? Because he just, in his weird logic, he's just like, all right, Laura is my darling Laura, the best runner alive. And also, God, she cares about me because when she runs so fast ahead of me, she always wants to look behind to see the beauty that is me, Steve Urkel. But obviously, what we know is that it's just Laura trying to get the fuck away from him as quickly as possible and to look behind to see how far away she can get from him.
It's like, have I made enough distance? Am I away from the snort?
God. So yeah, the females in the studio audience, they're just wooing Estelle, being blown away by the hunky men on her calendar. And Steve wants to pick Estelle's brain about what to do with Laura because he has these Johnny Gill tickets. And it was agreed upon that Laura would go to the concert. And oh my God, Steve suddenly has an awareness. Laura doesn't want to go to the date with him because she doesn't like him. And it's one thing for Steve to be genuinely appalled by Laura not wanting to go out with him as if she wasn't rejecting him a million times over in the last year or so. But then you have Estelle saying, genuinely, are you sure? Which is like, oh, Estelle, do you live in this house? Do you know what's going on? Have you seen this Steve and Laura interact? What? Do you really have this bad grandmotherly bias because you love Steve like he's your grandson, or this could be like a nice metaphor for like the fact that Estelle is barely in Family Matters, like she doesn't appear as much, so maybe she literally is just not in the house as much to know that Steve and Laura is a toxic thing.
I would love to give her that grace, but
Okay.
it's her next line that takes it away because Estelle literally throws Laura under the bus when she says, "What is wrong with that girl?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Laura, Mama Winslow. He just wants to get away from her stalker."
That's your granddaughter, for Christ's sake. If she doesn't like him, that is okay. My God, I know you like Steve like a grandson, but my God, stand up for your actual granddaughter.
Yes, stand up for this is no longer the 1940s. You don't just accept the man that comes around.
Yeah, literally. But I have to say, such poetry in this line here. Steve tells Estelle that he noticed Laura's eyes reacting momentarily with nausea at the idea of going out on a date with him. So then you have Estelle's naive grandmotherly bias when she really believes Steve to be a fine catch for the ladies. And then Steve is cockily like, yeah, that's something that I've believed in myself.
I love Steve's confidence. Him and Estelle too.
It's great. You know, Steve is getting what he's not getting from his parents, which is just a sense of love, a sense of confidence, a sense of understanding. And one wonders if Steve got more of that, then maybe he would become the person that we would like him to become, which is a person who accepts boundaries and consent.
Steve got just some good old fashioned grandmama Winslow love. He would have been a more functioning person in society.
Warm cookies, love, warm soup on a sick day home from school. Steve Urkel would be the greatest human alive.
I'm laughing because I would find it to be so good if that was the show. Steve and Estelle living together, coming over to the Winslows. I would have loved that.
I would have loved that. Yep. Yep. It would be a great spin-off idea. All right, so we have Estelle. She starts off with a good message, at least, by telling Steve that he is too fine a young man to resort to blackmail. So I liked that, but then the good message went out the door when she was like, you know what? Give it time. Laura is going to eventually come around. Instead of saying, could be meant to be, maybe it's not meant to be. And if it's not meant to be, that's okay.
Yeah, she just essentially told Steve, don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
He literally threw Laura under the bus.
You say that when like you're trying to achieve a goal in life that say a lot of people say you can't achieve. Like, oh, you want to be the greatest actor alive, Jaleel? Don't take no for an answer. Like, strive for it. Work your ass off and prove people wrong. When it comes to liking a girl that doesn't like you back, I don't think that applies.
It doesn't. Let's just take no for an answer and let's go to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a stigma that is I feel like we're still trying to get away from because I still feel like when we see certain TV shows and movies that are of the romance spectrum and it has to revolve around a guy persisting, trying to get this girl to pay attention to him, to like him, to want him. Like I think there's still this societal thing where it's like good for the guy for persisting and eventually getting what he wants. And we're seeing it less so from the woman's perspective, which is just, she don't want anything to do with you. Like, just take the no for the first time and move on to somebody that wants to have something to do with you from the get go.
Yeah, I don't know why Hollywood, movie industries, and everything really went on this warpath to make it acceptable for a guy to not take no for an answer, but a woman saying no only causes problems in her life. Like, take any movie from the 90s about a businesswoman, and she's always like, I'm busy with business, so I can't find love. And then this piece of crap guy comes in who doesn't take no for an answer, is like, I'm going to change your life with my penis. And it's like, can we not? Let's actually acknowledge that the woman said no.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there would be no story, there would be no conflict. So we know that in the context of a movie, they have to draw it out like that. But like in real life, oh my God, how better the world would be. Well, what are you laughing at?
I mean, when you say it, because there wouldn't be any content. And the bad part about it is like, so we wouldn't have any content, but we're taking content of someone who refuses to take no as an answer.
Yeah. It's bad. It's terrible. It's like it makes a story like this guy who won't take no for an answer, but is it the kind of story that we should be telling? I don't know. All right. Well, I have a new term for Estelle. Gamilf. Gamilf. She's a grandmother who likes I'd like to fuck. No, let me switch that around. Grandmother who because I literally spelled out GMILF, the grandmother version of MILF. And I mean, all due respect to Estelle, I think she's a great, funny woman. I would not want to fuck her, but I'm sure someone else does. I'm sure a hunky man of the calendar does. So how about grandmother who wants to fuck? So that's like a GMWWTF, which is a lot more complicated than it should be.
I like it though. It is very inclusive and it works.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So Estelle, her horniness in full swing here when Steve says he hopes Laura falls in love with him while he's still young enough to do something about it. And then Estelle is suggestively looking at her hunk of the month calendar and says, huh, I was thinking the same thing about Mr. February. And then the females in the audience are just like, oh.
They know, they're like, ooh, Estelle's about to have a good time.
And she keeps adding on to it. She puts she rises the heat here with this line. I may not always be cooking, but my pilot light is always on.
The best.
And of course, because I had to look up what a pilot light meant. I just had to make sure that I knew what a pilot light meant. And it is a small gas flame, usually natural gas or liquefied petroleum gas, which serves as an ignition source for a more powerful gas burner.
Yes. If you have a water heater, you have a pilot light in your house. Or if you have a gas stove, you have a pilot light that's always running in your house as well.
It's good that I look things up like this on the internet because I thought pilot light meaning like, I don't know, a light switch that a airplane pilot turns on to either turn the engine on or turn the light on in the cabin where they're flying the plane from. That's what I thought.
It makes sense because I've never understood why they chose pilot light as the name for it.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. You would think it was in a plane.
Now, did you have to take a breath before you get right back into the intensity that is the cemetery scene in scene 5, or did you just go right into it?
Okay, so very honest disclaimer. I just went right into the scene. This was an incredibly hard scene for me to watch.
Yeah.
So there was not much that I gained from it.
Here's what I'll say. I feel two ways. One, this was a very well acted scene. Like, I looked at this scene and I thought Reginald Val Johnson is the fucking goat. He actually made me tear up in this scene, while also thinking that this is so fucking bizarre that this is the season finale. What are we doing here? You want to share some thoughts? Like, what stood out to you? What confused you? Like, what about that? Because this is basically where Carl visits the grave of the elderly man who got shot under his watch. He eventually comes across the elderly man's widow. This is what you're expecting, where Carl is just emotionally like vocalizing his guilt, and the widow is there to say, "Let yourself off the hook." So, what did you think about this scene?
This was like this little touch by an angel interlude. And I was like, oh, okay. And the set looked good.
Yeah. Good.
There was a lot of crying.
Oh.
Whoa. There was a lot. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's a lot.
it's a lot. These are my notes. Carl is standing at the grave. The scene looks good. He gives a passionate speech and talks with the victim's wife, and he works on forgiving himself. That is all I have for this scene because, again, this was not one that I wanted to or enjoyed watching.
Because of how tough it was to watch.
Because my mom's death anniversary was literally a couple of days ago when I watched this episode. So I was just like, yeah, I'm not really into this, but okay.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I completely understand that. All right, so yeah, we open with an exterior shot of a cemetery with sad piano music in the background, and Carl is at the grave of Charles Mallory. That's the name of the elderly man who got shot that night 1 year ago. And Carl is at the grave with flowers. He's delivering a monologue. And then we see the old woman who is off to the side watching Carl deliver this emotional speech to Charles Mallory's grave, expressing his guilt. We find out that the old woman is Mr. Mallory's widow. And this was a lot, as we've already mentioned. But I gotta say, to the widow in this scene, she clearly has gone through probably a lot more than what Carl has gone through in the last year. I mean, she's lost her husband, her life partner. So I got to say, bravo to the bravery, the resilience, the emotional maturity perspective that Mrs. Helen Mallory gave when she invites Carl for a chat on the bench after his very tearful speech to the dead Charles Mallory. And Helen delicately challenges Carl on how hard he is on himself by explaining how Charles going to the convenience store that night 1 year ago wasn't some curse or his own doing. It was actually because of a simple request made by Mrs. Mallory herself, because she was the one that asked him to, oh, hey, we're running out of ice cream. Like, can you go get some ice cream at the local convenience store? What are you laughing at?
Okay, thank you. I needed something to laugh at here, and I forgot about the ice cream. And so immediately in my head, I'm like, cow juice ruining lives.
Yep, that lactose intolerance. Oh my God. And you know what? How about what if Mr. Mallory was lactose intolerant? What if that was like the curse?
I would have loved if she was like, yeah, I had to go get some ice cream and he is lactose intolerant, but I knew he was going to eat it too. Something like that would have made me laugh.
Yeah. And he had another version of his stomach blowing up. It was his stomach. It was his intestines. It was his arm. It was his leg. Everything blew up.
Shots fired.
Yes, literally. Shots fired, literally. Okay. So, yeah, Mrs. Mallory says that she asked her husband to go pick up ice cream at the convenience store that night. And after what happened, Mrs. Mallory wrestled with the scenario of like, fuck, like what if I hadn't asked Charles to go to the store that night? He might be still alive with me today. Carl jumps in to Mrs. Mallory's story and says, like, no, you couldn't have known what happened that night. It wasn't your fault. It's out of your control. And that's, basically reverse psychology on Mrs. Mallory part, because she essentially replies to Carl, exactly. Same for you. Like, what happened wasn't your fault. So stop blaming yourself for it. And Carl accepts Mrs. Mallory's plea to go easy on himself. He did the best thing he could do as the police officer on that night. The two end up paying their respects to Mr. Mallory with flowers by the grave. Carl and Mrs. Mallory emotionally hug it out. We got some melancholy violin music in the background. And I think my notes are kind of similar to yours, looking at the scene as a whole. which is wow, heaviness again. You give Reginald Vel Johnson some dramatic material and he will act his fucking ass off. Like that is a guy that deserved to be in a big movie like Die Hard before Family Matters. So good for him. Good for the actress that played Helen. I thought they had wonderful chemistry. I thought that they really pulled off this scene. I just wish that we had gotten this kind of episode much earlier in the season rather than smack dab at the end. But bravo, because, God knows what emotional preparation that Reginald and the actress that played Helen had to go through in getting to this scene. Because, especially for Reginald, I mean, this is definitely the most that he's had to like really give of himself in a dramatic sense so far in Family Matters. Have you seen Reginald be this dramatic? No, I don't think so.
No, no, not really. Not in anything, to be honest.
Tears were flowing like it was Niagara Falls. I was so surprised at the way he was crying. It broke my fucking heart. So that's what I got to say about that scene. It was quite something. Our last scene in the living room. And this is where we wrap up our B story of what Steve ends up doing with Laura and the Johnny Gill concert. And Estelle's involved, Harriet's involved. Eventually, Carl comes back after the fact, after he's done his trauma release with Helen Mallory. What did you think about this closing scene?
Okay, I laughed harder than any moment in this episode when Laura enters this scene wearing these Lord Farquaad pantaloon shorts. I screamed. I was like, what do they have Laura in?
I was going to almost describe or try to describe what she was wearing, but I've kind of given up at this point on trying to describe what Laura is wearing. I mean, it seemed to me like it was a very 90s aerobic influenced way of going out to see a concert if you're a teenager in that period of time. That's what it seemed to me. I mean, it was not something that I would find lovely to wear or to see on a woman. It's not my taste. But and I'm actually surprised that you don't like it because I thought you would think it was very fitting at the time, but you're clearly turned off by it.
I have always hated Lord Farquaad pants. And I'm going to just keep calling that because I don't know what they're physically called. I think they're pantaloons, but it's a weird cut short. Like they're too short to be longer shorts. They're not short enough to be short shorts. And then they have this weird poof to them. And I'm just like, what do you have on? No matter who wears those, people still wear those now. Mariah Carey, in one of her recent performances in Vegas, has on a pair of shorts that look like that. And I just find them to be so hideous.
Wasn't the color of that entire outfit, wasn't it like a really loud blueberry or a purple or
It was like a purple, and then I think she had on like some mesh or like some black stockings and like a white top. And I'm like, the color scheme was cute. The outfit, just in execution, was hideous.
I get that. And I think didn't she have like a hair scrunchie that sort of matched the color of the entire outfit? Yeah.
She had a scrunchie, she had a bang. Like Laura was ready to go out. She had on makeup, she had on like this like purple lipstick, she had on eyeshadow, which Harriet said she wasn't supposed to be wearing.
Uh,
And I'm like, Laura's all dolled up to go out.
yeah. Can we, speaking of Harriet, junk food in the beginning of this scene. I'm already not having it with Harriet shaming women for just having fun. So, first note, Harriet, the hunk shaming. What's going on? So she's coming into the living room. She's looking through this hunk of the month calendar, and she's just vocally expressing this judgy disapproval. Mama Winslow's there on the couch. She's noticing Harriet with her calendar. And Mama Winslow, in a move that I thought was not her character at all, instead of like owning it, like, oh, hey, yeah, that's my fucking calendar. Like, hello, because she's of a certain age. At that point, you don't care anymore. Of course, you're gonna look at young, sexy men. But no, instead, Mama Winslow is just very nervous and awkward. And Harriet is assuming that this hunk of the month calendar belongs to Laura. And she's like, all right, I'm gonna have a little talk with my little daughter over here about what she's looking at. And Mama Winslow's just like, okay, you know what? She's just going through a phase. Like it just. I mean, were you like me? Were you just wondering, like, why would Mama Winslow react like that? She should own it. Like, what? What?
Wanted her to own it because you owned it in front of Steve. So
Yeah.
I wanted her to own it so bad, but then I was like, wait, hang on. Maybe she sees that Harriet is interested in this and she doesn't want to develop that level with Harriet. Because if you ever meet anybody who's a porn prude, the person who's always talking about, I can't believe this porn and this, they love porn. They just don't know how to express they love porn. And I feel like that's where Harriet is. Harriet's like, this is so gross. but she didn't stop looking at it. She was flipping through the pages of that calendar. So it's like, do you really feel ashamed of it? Or are you just upset that you think your daughter got to it first?
Yep. It's always those uptight, sexually repressed people that got a lot of fucking kinks that they just don't, they feel so ashamed to let out. They
They
just
do.
bottle it up.
They're like, I'm gonna keep this a secret. But then when they see somebody else freely with their sex, they're like, you should be ashamed. And it's like, girl, you just put a gerbil in you. What are you talking about?
Yeah, this sounds weird to say, but you're literally describing my mom because this is how my mom was with 50 Shades of Grey. Like my mom, she's the typical God-fearing, overly Christian, overly judgy mom, doesn't want to talk about sex, always uptight about that shit. She was uptight about just me talking about kissing my wife. Literally, just kissing my wife on the lips. Oh, I kissed my wife on the lips. Like, I don't want to know that. Like, she's that person, but in the same breath, she's read the entire 50 Shades of Grey series. And whenever my sister and I bring it up to her, like, that's kind of a racy book series for you to read. Like, okay. And you know what my mom said? I just want to see how it ends, okay? I just want to see how it ends. Yeah, it's like I've heard about this book and I just want to see how it ends, okay? Leave me alone.
So my mom had 50 Shades of Grey. My aunts have it. They're all very, very religious.
Yeah.
And when my mom, she gave the same excuse. Oh, I just want to see how it ends. And I'm like, Mom, they have sex. That
Yeah.
is how it ends. And she's like, but it's so much more. I'm like, Mom, that is porn that you have. You think it's classy porn because there's no pictures, but that is still porn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like the shame that these poor women were brought up with. Like, oh my god, like if I reveal that I'm actually turned on in any way by this erotica, then that means I'm going to hell. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, you're my mom. I don't want to hear that from you, but only because you're my mom. But as a woman who has every right to her sexuality, like do whatever the fuck you want.
Like, you gotta have that balance, and oh my god, even my mom, she'd like, "How can you just be so free?" And I'm like, "Mom, because everybody does it.
Yeah.
Everybody has sex. You just gotta understand that's what it is." But then also women at that time growing up, my mom age, Mama Winslow's age, Harriet's age, they're taught that sex should not be enjoyable for you.
Yeah.
You don't desire sex. That's only something men desire.
Yeah.
So then they were shamed. And then it created all these underground kinks where women are the true freaks. Men are just along for the ride.
Yeah, because women have been taught to just hold it all in, and now that you have this wonderful, liberating, more progressive period where women can really act out on their kinks and desires, it yeah, of course, it's going to create what is it, SDSM,
Yeah, a little BDSM, a little role play, a little findom, whatever you're into.
yeah.
There's like a little section for everybody.
There you go. There you go. So anyway, back to this scene. Again, I'm just disappointed at Mama Winslow for reacting so nervously and awkwardly, for reacting so shamefully, hiding the fact that this is her calendar, claiming that like, oh, whatever, Laura's just going through a phase, it'll pass. She'll get to a point where she just, sits down and just spreads her arms and just pretends to not be pleasured by sex, just has the man do it to her just so she can have a baby. So it's not like Mama Winslow to be shameful like this. And also, just again, as we've already talked about, the stigma of women being shamed for their sexuality. Laura, she's young, she's clearly, I mean, if it was her hunk of the month calendar, I would see it as okay, you're going through a hormonal phase. It's literally not that different from a teenage boy looking at internet porn or having a Playboy magazine. If you're not hurting anybody, whatever.
Yes, punk of the month calendars are always like PG-13 at the max. So it's not like Laura had naked men on display or anything like that. It's just like I don't know if when you were growing up as a kid, when I was a kid, car commercials for children and posters for cars for children typically had scantily clad women in them.
Yeah,
That was like for like kids who were like 8 years old. So a hunk of the month calendar for Laura, I'm like, whatever, girl. It's not that big of a deal. She'll be
it really isn't. Yeah. But anyway, so we have that we had to get off our chest. Carl comes home in a happy mood. Harriet wonders why. I find it kind of odd that Carl was just like, I'll explain later. But for now, let me take you guys out to eat or whatever. Because for such a big deal that he made out of being traumatized by this incident from 1 year ago, I felt like it wouldn't have taken as much effort to say, and you could have said it very concisely, like, hey, Harriet, Mama, that thing I was dealing with from a year ago, I visited the guy's grave. The widow was there. We talked, we worked through some stuff, and I feel a lot better. Just something along those lines. Yeah, but for him to be like, no, it's no big deal. Like, it just, I don't know. It felt like a weird way to wrap up the A story because that's it. Like, we get no more mention of it after that comment.
So that is the part that leads me, and again, maybe I'm thinking too deep into this, but that is maybe their way of saying, hey, we didn't deal with the problem. It's still just being dealt with the way it was originally. You
Yeah.
feel like you got out the emotion, you swept it under the rug, and next year it's going to be back.
Oh, please don't tell me that we're gonna deal with this exact same thing in the season 3 finale. I swear to God, if we deal with this exact same heaviness in the season 3 finale, I may bow out. I mean, I don't know if I want a cycle of like, oh my God, Family Matters is really gonna just hit us over the head with some after school shit to wrap up a season, every season.
You know, we'll talk about it in a second because I have a lot to say about this.
Oh, all right. I'm so curious about that. Anyway, so let's go to Carl and Harriet exiting to the kitchen and Estelle giving me an out loud laugh because, she takes out the hunk-of-the-month calendar when Harriet is no longer looking. And she just says, yes, Lord. And then she just hides the calendar back under her butt on the couch in shame.
This is a problem, Mama Winslow. You're leaving your smut all around the house and not responsibly tucking it into your blouse.
True, Mama Winslow, hide your stuff better, but God, that yes, Lord. I was like, okay, I'm with you on that. We've all had a yes, Lord moment when we've looked at porn, right?
Sometimes you just find that good when you're like, okay, well, there we go.
I'm here. I'm here. Give me 10 minutes. I'll take care of this. All right. So, random Steve barging in at a certain time of night in his bedroom robe to announce himself to Estelle. I mean, it's not really random because it's Steve and he always barges in unannounced and unsolicited, but whatever. In any normal context, if your neighbor just came in almost close to the middle of the night in their bedroom robe to talk to you about something, how would you react?
My first reaction would be like, who's in danger? What is the issue? Why could you not put on proper clothing to enter my home?
Yeah. And comedian Sebastian Maniscalco had a routine related to this about how, like, the 90s and prior, like, there was a time where company would just drop in. Remember when, like, company came over? Like, when your family just had company?
Worst times of my childhood. Having company was always bad.
Unannounced. Like, so just sometimes they just be in the neighborhood and they're like, hey, I got an Entenmann's cake. Like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you about whatever happened in work today. Like, it just, company just came through. And like Sebastian was looking at it fondly, like it was a simpler time where we are all just like more in community and, trusted each other. And I love that. I love that time as well. And then he made a joke about what it's like nowadays, where like once the doorbell rings, like you're just like, what the fuck is that? Like, like you're just like in panic mode. Like, okay, where's my gun? Like you're thinking like the worst thing's gonna happen. But like what, fucking 30 years ago, like a doorbell rings, someone comes in, it's like, hey, it's Uncle Tom from the neighborhood. Come on in. Let's have some coffee.
'Cause I mean, back then we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the internet.
No.
So, like, if you're out from your home, the only way you're going to stop to tell somebody you're coming over is like at a payphone. But even then, a payphone, who knows if somebody else is using it, all these things. So you would just swing by somebody's house. And as a kid who always had to accompany the company going to somebody's house, it was
Oh,
always like, do we have to go sit and talk to these people for 4 hours at their
yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And the black community, I mean, they know when it's company coming over, or if we're the company coming over to someone's house, it's just gonna be a lingering hang.
Yes, because Black people don't know how to say goodbye without starting another conversation. Like it's going to last forever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm a little bit too socially anxious for that shit nowadays. But all right. So we find out that Steve took what Estelle said to heart, and I thought that. Well, first of all, when I saw that Steve was not dressed, he's in his pajama robe. I was like, okay, well, Steve is just talking to Estelle about this concert that's happening at another night. But then when Laura comes down the stairs and she's fully dressed in her Johnny Gill concert getup, it was like, "Oh, that makes sense. Laura's dressed up. She's confused as to why Steve isn't dressed up. And then Steve has a good heart for a moment and is like, you know what? I thought about it, Laura. I think it's fitting that you go on the concert with Maxine. I don't know if you were automatically thinking like I was thinking. I was like, oh, poor Maxine. The concert starts maybe like in an hour, and she's just being told, like, I gotta get something together. I would imagine that you would need some time to put together a decent outfit, decent makeup for a Johnny Gill concert.
Yeah, that's an insult. That's an invitation if you invite me at the last minute. It's like, I'm doing it because I feel like I'm obligated to, but I really don't want you to come. Like, if you waited till the last minute and it's a concert,
How long do you need to take to get ready to get an outfit together and get ready for an event?
probably about 5 to 6 hours.
Damn.
Like a good 5 to 6 hours because you got to pregame, you got to smoke, you got to dance to music, you got to like get in the mood. If friends are coming over to get ready with you, they're coming and you guys don't get ready. Like let's say the event starts at 9, you don't start getting dressed until about 9:15. And then
Mm.
you're
Fashionably late. I see what you're saying.
you never show up on time. Don't do that. If you get through an event on time, you don't want to be there. And I'm telling you that as an introvert.
You don't want to be there, or you are one of those old ass people that's advocating for like matinee concerts because that's a and you know what? This is probably a sign that I'm old. I'm looking at that and I'm like, I would be for that. Like I'm sorry. I'm the allure of say going out to a Taylor Swift concert at like 10 p.m. and not getting out until 4 in the morning. That just doesn't hold up for me. Like you give me a Taylor Swift concert at like 1 p.m. and promise me that we'll get out maybe at like 4 tops. Great. I'm your best friend.
Sold.
Yeah.
I'm sold. If I could go to a day drag show, I'm going to the day drag show. I don't feel like waiting till midnight for the show to start. I
Yeah.
am with you. And by 8 p.m., once that time hits now, if you are not getting out of my way so I can get to my car to go home,
Yeah.
I'm screaming at you to get out the way.
Anyway, back to this scene. So we go to Steve and his very wordy phrase that he gives to Laura about how he's trying to be the bigger man, letting her go to the concert with Maxine instead. I'm too big of a man to take advantage of your unseemly lust for a prognathous pop star. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's spelled Prognathous. It almost sounds like a character from Transformers, but prognathous is an adjective that describes a jaw, and typically a lower jaw that projects forward, especially to an unusual degree. So I think we're saying that Johnny Gill has a great jaw.
Johnny Gill has a newscaster jaw. Like his jawline is very powerful. Like he's got one of those manly men chins.
And does that mean something sexually, or is it just like it's just visually appealing? Simply visually appealing to see a guy with a jaw like that.
In men's fashion, back in the day, a big jaw, very square face was in. So it would be like more fashionable. I mean, I think like genetics, real life, having a big, I guess, could be kind of a sign of strength.
Okay. Okay. I just thought that maybe it had something to do with oral sex. Like maybe it's better if you have a longer jaw. I don't know. I don't know. I just when Steve uses that word to define like a perfect jaw or a unique jaw, my mind went spinning. I was like, okay, if you're using that to describe Johnny Gill, then maybe there's like some hidden meaning that his jaw can do things that you never thought they could do.
I mean, that could be a thing. You never know. I mean, it's got to be enjoyable to somebody.
Yeah, I slap my wife's jaw all the time because my wife, she has this annoying thing that she does when she lays on like my lap on the couch. Like she'll move her jaw in a way where it kind of has like it makes this like clicking feeling, like it has this clicking sound effect, and it has this uncomfortable clicking feeling on my hand. And I just like slap her face. I'm like, stop doing that with your jaw. That has nothing to do with this scene, but it just made me think of what not to do with your jaw. People do not move your jaw in weird ways. That just it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. Like when you're stretching your face and I hear your jaw clicking, do not do that, please.
It is different for everybody, but what you're feeling is a true thing that science has not been able to explain on
Yeah,
why certain people do that with their jaw and
yeah.
it bothers some people, and some people they don't notice it at all.
All right. Anyway, so we've gotten quite a twist here. Laura she's ecstatic, of course, about calling Maxine to go to the concert with her. But then, before she makes the call, she is like, "Huh? Wait a minute. I'm catching on, Steve. You're tricking me." And Steve claims that's not what he's going for. But Laura doesn't buy it, and she's like, "You know what? Nope, nope. I know I'm going to owe you big later on if this doesn't happen. So you're coming to the concert with me. Come on, let's go to your house and let's get you changed. And I thought for a moment that Steve was actually genuine and just didn't know or didn't have a plan. But then when Laura leaves, Steve looks back at Estelle and it's just like, Estelle, it worked.
Steve is the ultimate stalker. He knows what to do to manipulate everybody in the Winslow house.
I underestimated, thought he was being genuine, but nope. Steve's legendary emotional manipulation strikes again.
He knew what he was doing. He knew. He was like, I've just got to be just soft enough, but suspicious enough for Laura to want. He got it. He knew exactly what he was doing.
And the fucked up thing is that he essentially says to Estelle, "Oh my God, you told her, or you told me, Estelle, to wait until Laura comes around and falls in love with me, and it worked." And I'm just thinking, watching this, like, no, Steve, this is basically a continuation of the blackmail. Like, Laura still doesn't like you. She feels like she has to do this so that she doesn't get into a worse situation with you later on. I wouldn't know. I don't know if I would describe this as her falling in love with you all of a sudden.
It's definitely not. It's giving very big Futurama Lieutenant Brannigan vibes. He makes a joke in one of the seasons that if there's one yes out of 100 no's, you got a yes. It's the most terrible thing ever, but that's what Steve is doing.
I meant to ask you, like, back when we recapped the Lieutenant Murtaugh and Rachel episode, Skip to My Lou. So what is his name? Branigan from
And again, he's from Futurama.
Brannigan from Futurama. So describe him to me. Is he just kind of like that, just a dumb macho character that just doesn't compute things well together?
Imagine Lieutenant Murtaugh, but who can fly a spaceship that is in command of our intergalactic military. Yes, he has that much power, but he's a Brit.
I feel like we know someone like that in real life who's running our country.
Yes, yes, 100%.
Ooh. All right. So anyway, a step.
Get a chance, watch Futurama. The one episode I will tell everybody, Amazoness Women in Heat is the name of the episode. It is season 3, episode 6, I think. And you get Lieutenant Brannigan. You see exactly how he is. And tell me that that's not future Trump that you see on screen.
Well, the title of the episode got me alone. What is it? Amazon Woman in Heat?
Amazon Women in Heat, or it's Amazoness Women in the Mood, depending on if you watch it on Amazon Prime or you find the original cut, because they said the title was too offensive originally.
Got it. All right. I think this is my last note on this episode. Yeah. So Estelle tells Steve that he can thank her by giving her a Johnny Gill t-shirt. Steve ecstatically agrees, and he's so drugged with excitement that he ends up just running into the wall right beside the door instead of going directly out to the door as intended. And then Steve tries to gain his composure. We get a callback to the Laura's first date episode from last season. Remember when Steve says, "Excuse me," like the inanimate object that he's talking to is a person that he ran into accidentally. Yeah, he just says, "Excuse me," to the wall that he ran into. And then again, a season 1 callback. If you remember the party episode where Steve makes his entrance to Eddie's party, and he's like, "Laura, my princess," and he does this finger pointy dance that you and I love so much. He does that same thing here. He does the celebratory finger pointy Urkel dance as he goes out the door, like, "Yeah, I forced Laura to go to the Johnny Gill concert with me, but since I'm Steve, it doesn't seem that way."
It was hilarious. I screamed because "excuse me" is one of my favorite catchphrases from Urkel. I love it, and I wish they would have continued that of him running into things and saying "excuse me" because it was so funny. But the fact they brought it back for one of the final lines of the second season, I was like, okay, there's a golden line here. They saved part of this episode for me.
"Excuse me" is so much more subtle and underplayed compared to "Did I Do That?" Like, "Did I Do That?" There is a sort of there's sort of a exaggerated childlike mawkishness to "Did I Do That? Did I do that?" Like that kind of thing where he goes up nasally and gets all, look at me, old nervous me. Like, it's just very over the top that it's easy to get tired of it. But "excuse me" is just more quick, like, "Oh, excuse me." And then you just move on to the next thing. Like, it's more easy to not get tired of that. And I think that would have made a more effective long-term catchphrase than "Did I Do That?"
It really would. I can remember every time he says "excuse me." He said it when he ran into the pole at the cafeteria. I'm sorry, the restaurant when he first meets Laura. And then He does it when he's at the Winslow's house, but he always knocks over the phone. And then
Yeah.
we have this moment here. And I'm like, oh, that would have been such a good tagline to keep going.
Lost opportunity, god damn it. Anything else?
That is it. That is the end of the episode.
And the end of season 2. We fucking made it.
We made it. We made it.
All right, now time to, I think, beat this thing to a pulp. I think that's the kind of rating that you're going to give, but correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead. What do you think? What's your rating?
My rating is 0 stars. I really did not like this episode. Okay, so my big major issues starting this off. Last season, we ended on such a high note for the Winslows.
Yep.
That season finale was great.
Yep.
The story was great. The acting was great. We got every single character on the main cast in the episode, and we ended with this happy music
Mhm.
this season finale, they were kind of like, hey, so we want to emotionally scar people. We want to show Black people in pain. And we want this to be very unfunny and very unhappy. Like, I feel like they purposely were like, okay, so y'all ended on a high note. How about we just throw in this random school shooting? Like, that's what it felt like to me, where I was just like, what are we doing here? Like I said it last week. Last week's episode and the dream sequence in the Cowboy Saloon would have been a better way to end this season to me than this very sad, not happy episode. Now, we did get some silver linings here. I did love our scene with Estelle and Steve alone. I thought that was fantastic. I liked Laura in her pantaloons. I just find that to be very funny. And I did like that we got like a little bit of a different side of Estelle being sexy, but then at the same time, when she's found out she's being shamed, but then there was just so many other problems surrounding everything else that I was just like, I can't get into this because the pacing felt so weird. But then again, I had to remember there were commercial breaks in between this. So there was a chance for people to breathe. But then the opposite side of it is why did we spend such a big time on a character that we never see, this man who died? And then all of a sudden, this random widow who's introduced, and we only see her for a little bit to kind of sum up the scene, but then also just cover it up with more emotionally damaging things that we never go back to and address. So I felt like we were just left in this open space with no resolution of Carl's story. Laura and Steve didn't get the full story that could have been really fun. And then the rest of the family, it was just like, it happened. That's gonna be my rating. I know it was a lot, but this was 0 stars. I would not come back to Family Matters if I knew that this is where the show ended.
Yeah, that is a good point. I am actually going to give this one a 2 out of 3. So the positive part, the 2 part. Again, Reginald Vel Johnson, if he has the ability to make me laugh like he did in that scene 1 in the kitchen where he is just going crazy with the tantrum and then Harriet is reacting with fucking mocking sarcasm. If he can make me laugh like that and then in the same episode bring tears to my eyes and blow me away with how great his dramatic acting skills are, again referencing that cemetery scene, then I think the GOAT conversation has been settled. I just think that this guy is a layered actor with experience, with gravitas, not to knock Jaleel. I think Jaleel White, obviously one of the most brilliant comedic actors out there, but do we see as much dramatic gravitas from him as we do, say, Carl Winslow? Nope, we don't. So this episode just reminded me, like, oh yeah, like if there was an alternative reality where Reginald Vel Johnson was actually the star as originally intended. I mean, I know there's the whole thing about like Joe Marie Payton was originally going to be the star, and then it seemed like, okay, Reginald Vel Johnson thought he was going to be the star. But yeah, if Reginald became the actual star of the show and Steve Urkel wasn't a factor, then it would have been well deserved. I think Reginald would have taken this show to great heights if we really leaned in more on the range that is Carl Winslow. So great episode for him. I think that he should put this on his resume. I'm talking like he's a young actor trying to get some roles. No, he's fucking 70-something years old right now. He's experienced. But if he still has a reel, if he still has a demo that he's putting on his website, put this episode in. I think this was a great demonstration of his talents. All right. So as for the B story, the Steve bribing Laura into a date scenario, already wash, rinse, repeat at this point. But just like you, the pleasant side of it, I love the grandmother grandson dynamic that Steve and Estelle have. Great. We don't get to see enough of it, and that's probably part of what makes it great. It's just so cute, it's endearing, it's funny. Especially in a moment like when, Estelle is like, oh, I feel some way about Miss February or Mr. February. And then Steve is like, Estelle. Like he's just giving that a suggestive, like, oh, you go, girl, Estelle. Like they just have a nice playful dynamic that I want to see more of. So bravo, Rosetta, for your funny talents as Mama Winslow. The grandma who has a sexual appetite, she plays that very, very well. And as usual, Jaleel, bravo with the way you work off of Estelle. And as I've mentioned, the part of this episode where I'm like, nah, that's not going to be a 3 for me is sort of similar to where you were at, which is the fact that it was chosen as the season finale. I would have been okay with this episode if it was like a episode 10, episode 11. Overall, I thought it was a pretty decent episode. It was just placed in the wrong part of the season. I'm like you. I mean, if you're wrapping up a season of a basic TGIF family oriented sitcom, you're not coming back with new episodes for a few months. You better either give me a super fun send off. I didn't like the Western Dream sequence episode, but even I will say I would have rather we ended the season off with that than with this. Because at least with the Western Dream sequence, you're giving us a fun splash, a fun way to end the season that lets us know, okay, wow, I had a good time. This was a romp, and I think I might be back for season 3. If not that, if you decide to go in a more dramatic, suspenseful route, that's fine. Just end on a really good cliffhanger that gets us excited for season 3. So either super fun send off or super intense cliffhangery thing that gets us interested for the next season. If it's neither of those, then wow. Well, you have this. You have an oddly sad way to end season 2. And you and I are of the same mind because automatically, as I'm writing my notes, I was comparing it to the much more fun season 1 finale of Eddie trying to make the rock music video with his friends. That didn't turn out well, and then he makes this very, very goofy hip hop music video with his family. Like, yeah, okay, it's debated on if you found that cheesy or if you found that enjoyable. Doesn't matter. It's fun. It's fun. Family Matters is fun. At the end of the day, we go to Family Matters because we want to have fun. We want to laugh. We want to have our hearts warmed. And they ended off that season the way they should have ended it off. So David W. Duclawn, rest in peace. I think it was I think you definitely crafted an interesting episode worth talking about. A lot of great moments. The drama had some highs, the comedy had highs, but whoever the fuck chose it as a season finale, don't have that person choose season finales ever again, because that was a bummer way to end a very long season 2. So yeah, and yeah, you're shaking your head because it looks like you were probably thinking the same thing. You were like, oh my god, we spent fucking 10 years on this season and they ended this way.
Like I just wanted something different. Like I'm okay with going heavy. I'm okay with drama, but we tried to fit so much here. Death, trauma from the death, untreated resolution to the death. Then we tried to give comedic relief with Laura and this date. But then we didn't even have the entire full cast in the final episode. Like,
Yeah, I
where was Judy? Where was Richie? They are not in this episode.
Yep. Now, were Judy and Richie in the music video from the season 1 finale? Were they there?
Judy was, but I don't think Richie was.
Because he was still a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
I think he was in the beginning of the episode in the living room with the family, but I know he was when they first watched Rodney's version of the music video, that's where Richie is in the episode, and that he's not in the ending. Because my God, Rachel was holding Richie when they're watching the video where Eddie cut everybody out of it.
Jesus Christ. Family Matters just jump time so much because isn't it so bizarre to think that just last season Richie was a fucking like he was just a little baby. Like he couldn't speak, he couldn't fend for himself, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, okay, it's like this preschool age guy who can walk and talk and
dance, like all kind of stuff.
wow, they really did a 180. Okay, well, that's our thoughts. That is a wrap on season 2 of Family Matters, and I think you and I, Andrew, discussed that we would do something at the end called I mean, we didn't discuss what it would be called, but I'm just going to put it out there. 5 favorites. Let's just call it that. We thought that it would be cool to just kind of briefly tell you guys throughout the 25 episode season, 5 episodes that stood out to us. And I assume that you chose episodes that positively stood out to you, right?
Yes and no.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, no, because I whether an episode was bad or good in this system that I like doesn't change the fact that I think it can still be a top episode.
Really? All right. So take it away. 5 episodes that made an impact on you.
Okay, so my first episode that made an impact on me was episode 3, and this was Marriage 101. And I loved this episode just because we got some great fashion choices. We had a reference to Les Mis and Janet Jackson, who I both stand for. So I was like, oh, this is good. And
Yeah.
then one of the great parts about this episode is this is where we really start to see Steve's physical humor pick up and play with us a little bit more, especially when we had him and the flag in the classroom getting hoisted in the air. And then all the students go ahead and say the national anthem. And I just,
Oh my God. Totally forgot about that. But yes, that did happen in this same season. That's wonderful. Okay. Yeah.
my next one, hang on, I have them separated in my notes. That's why I'm clicking on stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next episode that is going to be on my list is Flash Pants. Flash Pants, I think, is very good just because we get this little policeman's ball dancing moment
Mhm.
that I think is cool. And you already know who I think is the best dancer here. And he does this Michael Jackson inspired dance. And I feel like that stole the episode for me because it's one of those fun little moments that you're just like, okay, we didn't need this gem, but now I know we need it.
I love it.
Then we're gonna jump here and we're going to episode 8. Episode 8, this one sticks out to me. 2 reasons. One, this was right around the time when we were rewatching it that Batman Scoop passed away. And it was definitely an episode that I felt was like, hey, this is a little bit of a tribute to what I know about Batman Scoop. And that is because we get all these pranks that have to do with Laura and Eddie. And this is the introduction of
Myrtle. Yeah, yeah. This is the cousin Urkel episode. Yep, the introduction of Myrtle Urkel. Yeah.
Yep, and this is where we get Myrtle. So this is all a fun little episode for me. Now I remember I gave this one a very low score. I want to say I gave this one star. I did. I gave this episode 1 star. And even though I didn't think the episode was good, I did think that it gave us an iconic moment that we all know about in Family Matters history, Myrtle. I don't think I've ever heard somebody reference Family Matters without bringing up Myrtle.
Yeah. And how bizarre that we won't see her for another 5 years.
Little did we know Myrtle scarred our main character from what we know of.
Uh-huh. All right. That's a good one.
Then my next episode is episode 11, and I forgot what the title of this episode was.
I got you. It is Requiem for an Urkel when Steve fights Willie Fuffner in the ring.
Yes, this is when Steve fights Willie. And one, I love this episode because we get Lorenz Tate, just one of my favorite people in the world. But the other side of it, even though again, this was one of those 1 star episodes for me. But when I went back and I reread my notes about this, I was interested in rewatching the episode. Now, I didn't rewatch it. I'm not going to. But I wanted to rewatch the episode because I was like, wow, I had some very intense, heavy reactions from this episode. So it's going to be on my list of one of my tops.
Okay.
And then my last one is going to be last week's episode. I don't know why, but there is something about that saloon in all of the rapid fire comedy, the extreme craziness of this dream sequence that they went balls to the wall and then broke the fourth wall 4 times in the episode, which I don't know if it was intentional to do it 4 times specifically as like, hey, we're breaking the fourth wall, but I just think that's genius. And I have to change my rating from last week. My rating from last week for the episode was a 2. It is now a 3
Okay.
because I did go back and rewatch this.
Yeah. The good, the bad, and the Urkel. Yes. I think they would call this the penultimate episode of season 2, the episode before the final episode. I love that. All right. I'll try to go through it as quickly as I can because I know it's super late into the night right now. Number 1, the crash course. I have a wonderful memory of you and I just loving the shit out of Carl's reaction to Eddie driving a car through the living room. Again, the lack of logic in having a car accident in your living room is real, but man, to just have Reginald VelJohnson as Carl just stammer, just almost about to explode. And then, of course, you have Harriet like, Carl, like, calm down. And Harriet, there's a car in the living room. Like, it's just, maybe we're probably not the only ones. I mean, I know that episode, our recap of it has been well viewed on YouTube, probably well viewed on Spotify as well. Like, it's probably a favorite for many other people's. That episode, just because of Carl's reaction to Eddie driving a car through the living room, that is a legend. Number two, if I recall correctly, you are not a fan of this episode, but I loved it so much. Dedicated to the one I love, where we got this fucking homewrecker Loretta coming in to the Winslow home, putting herself all over Carl, kissing him, hugging him. Harriet's there to watch. I know you weren't crazy about how Harriet just did nothing about it and just let it happen. And there was just, again, going back to Reginald VelJohnson, I mean, the nervous guy way that he reacted, you know, like, oh, no, what are you talking about, Harriet? You don't like me. I mean, whatever, you know, like he was clearly into it. He was clearly blushed, and he was also in denial. Like, just the way Reginald played that as Carl, lovely. And I guess I'm still processing like our conversation about it, because I know you were very much like, you know, Harriet, and to correct me if I'm wrong on this, you were very much on the side of like Harriet should have done something more, like what the fuck is wrong with her. And I don't know, I think about our recap of that episode often because of how like Harriet plays a role in this, because it's like, oh god, on the one hand, I mean, yeah, it's unfathomable to imagine just anybody seeing that their spouse is being hit on in that very forward way in their own house and not doing something about it. Like that was like, wow, Harriet has some fucking restraint like I've never seen before. And at the same time, criticizing that she didn't do anything about it, to me, it just kind of had that reminder of like, I think back to that Chris Rock stand-up special. I think it was Bring the Pain. And a joke that doesn't hold up today was when he was talking about the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky stuff. And I don't know if you saw that special. Chris Rock's take was essentially saying that Hillary should have, you know, been better at sexually pleasuring her man, and maybe the Monica Lewinsky stuff wouldn't have happened. I don't know. I mean, you may feel some type of way about that. Other people may feel some type of way about that. But I was just looking at that like, no, we should probably be talking about the person who's wrongfully having an affair, violating their marriage. And I don't know. I guess the more I think about that Dedicated to What I Love episode, the more I think that more of the blame should be on Carl for just being so fucking stupid at not detecting the clues, and less so on Harriet for how she reacted. Because I don't know, maybe there was like a sense in the writer's room, maybe there was a sense with Joe Marie that like, oh yeah, no, we don't want to like pit women against each other for the sake of a man. We don't want that stigma of like the women catfighting for a man. So I don't know. I don't know if you've had different thoughts, or if you feel the same way about it. But yeah, sometimes I just think about that episode and I'm like, huh. Yeah, it just has me thinking.
But I haven't changed because there's no way a woman in a shake and go wig and gnarled fingers is going to come in my house and flirt with my partner. That is
Yeah.
unacceptable. No
Yeah.
matter who is. Now, no, I can't. I cannot understand them be like, we don't want to pit two women against each other. The concept that she's coming to take your man has
Mhm.
already created that.
Yeah.
So I couldn't support them on that. And then my other side is like, so Harriet's not going to be human and react? Does she love Carl? What is
Yeah.
going on here? Because now we have other questions to answer because you never trust a woman in a shake and go wig. I'm getting heated again. Don't ever trust them.
You're talking about Loretta.
Yes, so Loretta's wig is a shake and go wig. You never trust somebody who has one of those on.
Yeah, yeah. It was just, I think that's one of those episodes that I just have to go back and rewatch, not only because of like, you know, the discussion centered around like Harriet's role on, you know, restraining herself and just not doing anything about Loretta from the get-go, but also just, again, I mean, it goes back to Reginald VelJohnson's talents. I mean, just the clumsy, funny way that he played it, you know, as Carl is really, really, really being hit on by Loretta in their own house, in the Winslow house. It was amazing. So I love that episode for all of that. Number 3, Busted. This was, I believe, when Eddie had to get money for car repairs by gambling in the illegal casino. Definitely fun moments there. I'm sure. Yeah, that was definitely of course, it was the infamous episode where Gilio got the very adult kiss as Steve that traumatized him later on in the dressing room. So aside from that, fun moments for Steve Urkel. But I actually think that that episode is going to go down in history for me because I believe that's the same episode where we get the Aunt Clobubla B story, where Carl, again, going back to Reginald VelJohnson, Carl accidentally tosses Aunt Clobubby's ashes and tries to cover it up from Harriet, Rachel, and Mama Winslow. That B story, even though it was clearly meant to be like overshadowed by Urkel and Eddie at this illegal casino, that B story, I just remember you and I reacting as if like that story should have just taken over the whole episode and we would have been like satisfied. It was such a great, funny B story. It says a lot about an episode if a B story can affect you that way when it's not supposed to. So busted for me. Are you tearing up because you're remembering about that?
And because that episode was just so funny.
Yeah. It just, I mean, the illegal casino stuff, I'm sure there was stuff about that, but yeah, the Anklo Bubba Ashes thing, it was just great. So put that up there. Number 4, Torn Between Two Lovers, which I think is episode 2. Yeah.
That is episode 2.
That was part of that. That was technically part 2 of a season premiere 2-parter. One where Leroy's burnt down, and 2 where Rachel's place is now in full swing, and Urkel is trying to set up a nice, fancy tuxedo dress date with Rachel because he's misled to believe that Rachel is in love with him when she's actually in love with someone who also happens to be named Steve. Yeah, I just remember like enjoying the play between Urkel and Rachel in that date scene. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think I mostly chose that episode because I made the mistake of saying that we should choose 5 episodes, and I was starting to run out. I was starting to run out, so I was like, "Torn Between Two Lovers" was fine, right?
Like, it stuck out to you for a reason. That's still good.
Yeah. So that was I remember that being a fun episode to recap, and then finally, I'm gonna choose Boxcar Blues. And I remember Steve and Carl from, Steve talking to the animals to, oh, yeah, Steve and Carl having a snort laugh symphony where Steve is basically instructing Carl how to do a great snort laugh. And then they just do it together like they're this one song. That really brought out what wonderful chemistry Steve and Carl have. It really puts it, I think it's a perfect genesis for what we're about to see going forward if we do choose to recap the rest of Family Matters. So Boxcar Blues, because if you really want to see like a nice feel for what makes Steve and Carl, watch that episode. That's a great one. So that's it. Those are my 5 favorites that stand out in season 2.
I like it. I like it. I'm going to call season 2 the preteen season.
Yep.
This is like the show is just getting to that awkward pimply phase, trying to figure out where it's going. We don't really have a set standard for Steve yet, but we're developing it. We're trying to figure out Carl and Harriet's dynamic. Like, we're in this very awkward transition phase. And then once we get to season 3, if we go there, now we're the less stinky teenager, but we're still going to go through some awkward growing pains.
I mean, just off the top of my head, my observations for what the Family Matters staff has learned from season 2. We know that Steve and Carl have a great dynamic. We know that Steve and Laura have a great dynamic. We know that Steve and Eddie have a great dynamic where we've already seen that Eddie and Waldo can have a fun dynamic that they'll be using going forward. We know that little Richie, cute little kid that we're going to use for those all cute little kid purposes. Rachel, I can see her being phased out because not that long ago, I think we were talking about how she was a great, goofy supporting character, great for gaslighting, great for doing weird shit like playing the saxophone really loudly in the house. Mama Winslow still has that great grandmotherly either sexual appetite or witty deadpan comeback charm, but I see her not being used as much for that. And then we have Judy. I mean, let's be honest, Andrew. I mean, I'm already seeing it. It's only season 2. She's got 2 more seasons. I'm like, I got nothing to say about Judy in season 2.
I'm a Judy stan. I
Yeah.
love me some Judy, but I can't recall Judy as much as I could in the first season. Like, I
Yeah.
can't be like, this was Judy's standout moment for this season, because I honestly don't have one.
Yeah. One of our fans on YouTube, I remember there was an episode we recapped, and the fan in the comment was like, oh, yeah, you guys forgot about Judy's line, fat chance. And it was literally the only line that she said throughout the episode. And I think in the nicest way possible, I responded like, you know what? If it was memorable, we would have said it.
Thank goodness, because I was gonna be like, obviously it was forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, it's like God. There could have been so much given to her character, and I feel so bad. But if it's only season 2 and we're like, Judy, where was she this season? Might not be looking good for season 3.
Not looking good because season 3, again, can't recall an episode right now where I'm like, I'm looking forward to seeing Judy in that. I can't because poor Judy.
Yeah, I mean, and really, that's the yeah, that's God. That's the only character out of the main cast. That's the only character that I don't see having a clear cut identity that had a strong season. I think I don't know if I mentioned Carl and Harriet, but again, they're dynamic, especially in this episode. It's a reminder of like, oh my God, they play off of each other so well. But yeah, if you look at that Winslow main cast and Urkel, like if you look at just the main cast in general, Judy is the one that stands out as just somebody that just does not bring anything to the table. There's just nothing that you can say other than like, oh yeah, she's the child that just pops up every now and then. And I'm sad because I remember, I think, God, the background actor that we interviewed, what's his name, who appeared as a background actor in, fittingly enough, Judy Winslow's last episode. That was his first episode.
My God, what was his name? Oh, I'm blanking on his name. Told
Uh,
us about the food fight scenes.
Rob Rasner.
Rob Rasser.
Yep. So he appeared as a background actor in many Family Matters episodes throughout the show's run. For you listening and viewing, listen to our Rob Brasner interview from our season 1 process. Great time with him. And yeah, the very first episode he worked background on was Judy Winslow's last episode, which was Mama Winslow's wedding. And all I can say is by season 4, because I know that Rob Brasner also did background for Myra's first episode in that season. I think that was the same episode where Judy had a storyline and Jamie just was acting like she was over it. Like she just brought no energy, no enthusiasm. And I kind of don't blame her because I think by then, if you're just being so underutilized, there's probably a depression that sets in. And then you add the fact that she's like growing into a teenager. So she's probably have those usual teenage moods. I mean, yeah. So all I can say is just it's sad. It's sad how underutilized Judy will further be moving forward.
The way her mom, Jamie's mom, talks about it in that final season. Again, I'm going to say this for everybody. If you have not seen The Dark Side of Comedy, the
Yeah.
episode that has to do with Family Matters, we get to hear from her mom, and the way her mom describes the way they were removed from the show, essentially. It doesn't surprise me that she would have been over it in season 4. In season 4, they weren't even allowed to park in the parking lot where the studio was. So I can only imagine just how emotionally draining that had to be, especially for a kid at that point, and you're going through puberty. And it sucks to be that because in this family, you're the youngest kid, but now you're going through puberty. So you're no longer this cute, adorable small child, but you're this awkward, weird teenager, and they don't know how to fit you in with these
Yep.
other well-established characters. So it kind of just sucks for her. And then boom, go up the stairs and you never come down.
And it's interesting that that's been what has like it's very interesting that that is the myth that has always been carried about how Judy Winslow left the show, because that's not actually how she left the show. Like, where did that come from? Because literally the last episode is her walking down as a bridesmaid to Mama Winslow's wedding. So I guess someone saw an episode shortly before that where she went up the stairs and just never came down for the rest of the episode and just mistakenly thought that that was her last appearance. But yeah, no, technically it's just like she literally is a bridesmaid at Mama Winslow's wedding, and that's it. We just never see her again after that episode.
Nobody really counts that episode. Even the Family Matters cast all say the same thing. Judy went upstairs and never came back down. Everybody just says it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it kind of caught on because we're like, oh yeah, she did come back, but she kind of just appeared at the wedding.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she didn't make an entrance. Nobody really was like, hey, Judy. It was kind of just like, you're here again. A season and a half of us pretending you never existed. So a lot of people still have always stuck with that narrative. She went up the stairs and never came down.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I think what really stings more is you have characters like Rachel and Mama Winslow who, like, I mean, they're just being used less and less to the point where they are no longer main cast, but they still like show up in like special guest star spurts throughout the rest of the show's run. Like in my mind, I thought Mama Winslow, Rachel, Judy, they kind of all left permanently like after the end of season 4, but that's actually not true. Judy was gone after season 4. Rachel, I believe you see her on a gradually regular to semi-regular-ish basis until like around season 6-ish.
Mhm.
What actually ended up happening, I read about this. So Thelma Hopkins got a role on a television series called Getting By for the 93-94 season. And I think that when she agreed to be on that show, I think it was a mixture of okay, clearly Rachel is not being utilized prominently on this show anymore. So let me go where I'm going to be needed. So then she did that show for that season. I think that's when she officially left the main cast. And then when that show, Getting By, got canceled after one season, then afterwards you would suddenly see just like random special guest spots of Rachel popping in here and there. And then the very last appearance of Rachel and Mama Winslow, if you can believe it, the season 9 Christmas episode.
Huh?
Was Judy asked to return?
Nope. I remember that episode. Judy was not asked to return, but everybody else came back.
Because because with the aunt and the grandmother, they're adults. I mean, it's very, I mean, they've been adults from the get-go who can do their own fucking thing. So it's always been sort of easy to be like, oh yeah, Rachel is traveling. Mama Winslow, maybe she married and is living with her husband and just dropping by for a visit. But Judy, I think there was an awareness of like, oh yeah, like the last time people saw her was a young child amongst the Winslow family, Eddie and Laura's little sister. So to just have her randomly disappear for like 5 or 6 years and then she just pops back up, I guess the writers, the producers, they just found it very hard to like explain how suddenly like this very pretty important member of the Winslow family just was gone for 5 or 6 years and then came back. Like this child that was dependent on their parents for a good amount of time suddenly vanishes when they're a teenager, when they're still dependent on their parents, and then they just they suddenly spring back up as a young adult in season 9. Like it would have been hard to explain.
Would have been the thing that always gets me where I'm like, y'all could have brought Judy back at any time is because we have Rachel just disappear on her son. And her son is just
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like, why did we not like think of the continuity here? Like Rachel just poof is gone for years and
Yeah.
then Richie stays, but we can't even bring in Judy for like a cameo here and there. Like I
Yeah.
always thought that was so weird.
It is. And I'm sure there was not the greatest blood. I'm sure there was bad blood with Jamie Foxworth, her mom, and the Family Matters staff. I'm sure that played a part in her just literally never coming back after that season 4 wedding episode. Boy, lots to talk about. This will be quite an episode to edit. I think we've gone like 4 hours. Well, hey, to you listening and viewing, thank you so much for sticking with us for both season 1 and season 2. Here's what's going to be coming up. So, wow. So Tim Ryan, the actor that played the fake Southern accented hustler from the Fast Eddie Winslow episode, I recorded an interview with him way back in November, and I've just been sitting on it. So that episode will come out as soon as possible, like after we release the season finale recap. So that's what's coming up next. We know that. And for you, dear listener and viewer, we would like to get more cast and crew interviews coming up. It's been confirmed that writers Fred Fox and Steve Langford are interested in coming on, so it's just all about scheduling a date and time for them, and we will let you know when that episode comes out. And as far as season 3, Andrew, you and I have discussed we would like to come back. We are hoping to come back in the fall of this year for season 3. So that is the plan, and you can always go to our social media. We'll keep you posted on shit. That's where we're at right now. So thank you for sticking with us, and we hope you stick for more if we are able to do more.
Stick with us. You'll see where this road goes. I just have to say, I can understand now why network TV actors love a break in between seasons.
Yep.
It gives you a chance to step away from the work and then maybe fall in love with it all over again.
Yes, because if you don't step away, you're going to hate it because it is a grind. I'm sure, I mean, obviously they put in a lot more work producing the show, but still recapping it like we do week after week, putting in notes, putting in the time to watch the episode, dissecting things here and there. It takes a lot of energy. So much needed break now. And we hope to be back as soon as possible, ideally, again, in the fall for season 3. All right. So in the meantime, as usual, subscribe, follow, rate, review, all that good stuff. The Delicious Recap, wherever you get your podcasts. You could go to our email if you have any questions, comments, concerns. The Delicious Recap at gmail.com, and Instagram, Threads, Reddit, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Search Delicious Recap, The Delicious Recap, the picture of Steve Urkel, living single, cream sabers, Fresh Prince. That's us. And as of now, we have our Patreon, patreon.com/delicious recap, where you can get early access to episode recaps and interviews before the general public does for just $5 a month. Patreon.com/delicious recap. And if you don't want to do an overall membership for all the episodes that you get early, that's okay. You have the option to choose individual episodes that you want to pay for just $3. So why not take advantage of that if you must? Patreon.com/delicious recap. All right, Andrew, how can people follow you?
You can follow me on TikTok and YouTube at Ajay Vandertunt. I'm the only one that exists on both platforms. And you can just come and have fun with me, get a little political humor, get some satire. If you want some news that is not all doom and gloom, you can come follow me. If you don't want that, you can still follow me because there's other things we're going to talk about, and I will be starting video game playthroughs.
That sounds fun. I love that. All right. Shall you give us a little deliciously ringing sign off? Maybe something that reflects how we're feeling at the end of the season?
This season was shit.
The entire season?
I'm joking.
Oh my.
This has been so great. It's been a journey going through a lot of this. But the fun part about it is each time we sat down to have dinner with one of these episodes, I left with something delicious. And that deliciousness is going to ring for this season.